Council, Youth Advisory Council, who had joined, and they were like, "Yeah, nothing's happening," and they ended up saying just a few weeks ago, really, that we're out. We're not doing that anymore. Well, I've been such privileged to work together closely with an organization called Run Gen Z. That has been organized by our friend Joe, who is in the state legislature in Iowa, and has been a tremendous help, a tremendous asset to identifying young conservatives and training them and encouraging them to run for public office. Because we know as party leaders, one of the hardest things that we have to do is recruit someone to run for every possible candidacy, every possible office. So I'm really delighted to share with you today that we are going to have an open panel, open discussion about the direction, the future of the Republican Party, what we need to do to support our youth and make sure that they stay on the right track. Please welcome Run Gen Z, Joe, and Joe Mitchell, and the future of the Republican Party here.
Well, welcome everybody. How are we doing today? We're in beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada, and it's so great to be here with you all. And I enjoyed yesterday so much. And Turning Point throws the best conferences, don't they? Right? And you know, Charlie and Tyler have both been great friends of mine for the past 3 or 4 years now. And we started Run Gen Z about 3.5 years ago when I was a state representative in Iowa. I served 2 terms in the Iowa House. But we started it on the premise and with the mission of empowering young conservatives to run for state and local office, because we know we need a pipeline. Right. And that's what we're doing here. You guys are creating a pipeline both for the RNC, your local parties, and your state parties. And so I just want to congratulate you guys on being here today, to going out there, being activists, and being true patriots. So give yourselves a round of applause. And so I have the honor today to be able to moderate this panel called The Future of the Movement. And these young people up here are the future of the movement. And so I'm going to let these guys introduce themselves. But we have Caroline Harris, state representative from Texas, the youngest state representative in Texas.
Hi, y'all.
We have Will Donahue, who started and founded the College Republicans of America, and really has an amazing story of taking back the College Republicans and making it into a great organization once again. So give it for Will. And then we have Cooper Whitmer. So Cooper is a member of the Turning Point Action team and does a phenomenal job. And Luke Malice also with Turning Point Action. So give these 2 guys a round of applause too. So, Caroline, we'll start with you. Just give a brief introduction about yourself, kind of your background, maybe why you ran for the State House.
Absolutely. I am Caroline Harris, and as Joe said, I'm a state representative in Texas, right outside of Austin. And as a matter of fact, my district is one of the closest Republican districts to Austin. And so, as you can see, it is so important for me to hold the line in that district. And really, I just got fed up. That's how I decided to run for office. I had a Democrat who was my state rep for 4 years, and I finally said enough is enough. He went on Fox News and said, we need to get rid of voter ID in Texas. Right. And so I had been a staffer for 8 years, and I was sitting in my old boss's office watching that interview, and I said, okay, enough is enough. I got to do something. And so I went out to recruit someone to run, and no one would do it. And they all turned around and said, well, why don't you do it? And I said, well, I'm 27. You know, I'm afraid of public speaking. I mean, how can I do this? Anyway, the Lord has a sense of humor. The Lord really made it clear to me, listen, this is where I want you. And oh my gosh, I announced a run, had a contested primary, went into a runoff, and I only won that runoff by 108 votes. And thank you. And it was knocking on doors. I know you guys have heard a lot about that in these past few days, but knocking on doors won my election. I know that. I went on to win the general election, and by the time those 3 elections were over with, I knocked on almost 10,000 doors myself in my district. And I plan to do that. I've already started knocking doors for my next general, which is in the fall. So if you need encouragement to get out there and start working, I've already started, and it really does make a difference. So anyway, that's my story. We just finished our session. I won Freshman Legislator of the Year from my GOP colleagues. I got 12 bills passed. You know, when you're new, they say if you get 1 bill passed, you're doing pretty good. And because I have a lot of energy and a great team, we got 12 passed. So I'm so proud of what we accomplished. And I'm so proud of all of you. Like Joe was saying, it takes so many boots on the ground to win elections. And we know we need to win in 2024 and beyond. And so I'm excited to be here and talk about what we are working on, not just for 2024, but the future as well.
And Caroline's story is all of our story, right? She was looking for who's going to step up, who is going to step up and take that next place. And that's who you guys all are, right? You guys are going to be running for, county chair, state party chair, RNC committee man or committee woman. And so that's all of our stories here, is that we were fed up with what was happening. We stepped up to fill that leadership void. So, Will, next to you, talk about your story, your background, maybe why you initially started the College Republicans of America and why you've seen the former CRNC failing, why you needed to step up to start the College Republicans of America.
First off, I'd like to thank Turning Point Action for having me here today, and thank you for the question, Joe. When I started out college, I was probably what you would consider a liberal. I was a libertarian, much like most kids. And after entering the universities, it was very clear to me that they were a swamp that needed to be drained, much like Washington does. They are an infestation. The universities are corrupt. And it switched me right over to the right. Both my parents were liberals. They voted for Obama both years. They didn't vote for Trump in 2016. They voted for Trump in 2020, though. Yeah, I converted my parents. Thank you.
Right.
When I got to university, it was clear nobody really thought like me, and so I founded my College Republicans chapter at Loyola Marymount back in 2020, beginning of 2020, right before the pandemic. I had it up for a month before we had to go home for COVID, which is great. But quickly rose through the ranks and took over the California College Republicans, built it back up. We had record fundraising, and last year we decided that the CRNC, the existing institution that's been around since 1892, just wasn't cutting it anymore. The CRNC had pretty much died. They fell from 1,500 chapters down to 50, 30. We're actually not sure because their website's completely unoperative. So there was a chasm in the college Republican space, and it's a necessary institution, right? We need the college Republicans to be our grassroots forces on the ground, making calls and knocking on doors for the party. And the fact that the organization had completely crumbled due to ineffective leadership and some other problems was completely unacceptable. So we started College Republicans of America in April. I'm happy to announce that we're up to 120 chapters in less than 9 months. And we're represented in nearly half the states. But our main target in this upcoming election cycle is Wisconsin and Arizona, because those are the states that we need to help President Trump win in this election cycle. So we're boots on the ground. We just had several dozen kids flying in from 9 states to campaign in Iowa. We made over 50,000 calls in 4 days. And we are back and better than ever before.
Right. Cooper, we'll turn to you. Talk about your kind of journey into politics, how you found yourself at Turning Point Action, and kind of your background and what your job is there now.
Yeah, guys. So exactly, as you said, my name's Cooper Whitmire. I'm the senior field representative for Turning Point Action down in Georgia. So, yeah. So about 2.5 years ago, Charlie and Tyler and Austin and Brett and the rest of our Turning Point Action staff all came down to Georgia for the 2020 runoffs. I'm sure some of you were down there knocking doors for it. And they did this event in Alpharetta and were looking for volunteers. And I had never been involved in politics much in my life. I'd always kind of kept up with it. I obviously made sure to go out and vote Republican. But I really didn't know much about door knocking or get out the vote efforts or anything like that. Really never knew about any of that from the Republican Party or the GOP or the RNC or anything like that. But when I saw that Charlie was coming, I went, I met our Turning Point Action staff. They were super friendly. They showed me how to go out and canvass and knock doors. And then they're the ones, after they left, who actually connected me with the Republican Party. And from then on, I went and volunteered. And about 6 months later, when they decided to hire in Georgia, they actually offered me a job. And I've been full-time with the organization ever since. So it's been great. And now in Georgia, we're on the ground full-time. Every day, we're out registering voters, signing up precinct leaders, getting people involved with their county Republican Party, and just doing the work.
Okay, wonderful. And then we got, so Luke Malice. So Luke's also Turning Point Action, but also is the National Committee man for the Young Republicans in Michigan. And so kind of, Luke, if you want to give your background and kind of how you got your journey into YRs and the Turning Point Action field.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, like we said, my name is Luke Malice. I am the Great Lakes region field manager, which encompasses Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. And with that, I manage some incredible field representatives in all three of those battleground states. But funny enough, the start of my political journey, really, I always, had been involved, throughout high school and a few years after that in local campaigns, going out knocking doors and doing stuff for the local GOP. But around the 2020 election had come around, and obviously we were all very demoralized, and we knew that something terrible had happened to our country. I knew that I wanted to now get involved right then and there. And funny enough, I was listening to the Charlie Kirk show, and Joe happened to be on it, and I heard something about this thing called Run Gen Z. And I actually reached out, and Mason, who's awesome, he ended up reaching out to me. We had a few meetings, and then they ended up getting me out to one of their, actually I think it was the first ever Run Gen Z. Yeah. So went out there, met some incredible people, and through those connections that I made, I actually met our incredible enterprise director, Brett Galachewski, and incredible how God works, because after just, the next time around that we had the next Run Gen Z conference in Dallas again, we ended up, having an open position in Michigan coming open, and I was really wrestling with God whether I was going to run for office, as a state rep, or if I was going to, where else does he want me? And funny enough, we had an open role in Michigan, got involved, and, they hired me, and man, it's crazy to think that's been about 2 years ago, traveling, the entire state like crazy, averaging like 25 hours of drive time a week, driving across that whole state. But I'll tell you what, there's nothing better than being out there with the grassroots and getting people involved and getting precinct delegates plugged into the party. And, people can say whatever they want to about Michigan, but I can tell you right now, these people care. And that's why Turning Point Action's here, though, because we're here to be able to train these people, and we're giving them, the bigger vision, which is we're going to go out and we're going to chase these ballots. We're going to give them a mission, and we're going to be able to help them every step of the way and be in lockstep together. So, I hope that kind of gives a little bit of a nutshell.
And I got to say, from that story, let's give a big round of applause to Brett, who's over here in the corner. Brett, raise your hand. So, and actually, Luke, your story is such a powerful testimony because, when I started this organization, I came to the SAS conference in 2019 for Turning Point, spoke on a panel there, and that's when I really started getting the idea to start Run Gen Z, right? Because I started meeting young people at these Turning Point events. It's like, we can have this coalition and this organization help mentor the next generation of conservative leaders. And that's the next year I came back to SAS in 2020. We had started Run Gen Z. We got it off the ground, and then Charlie had given me seed money to start Run Gen Z. I mean, this thing's here because of the support from both Tyler and Charlie and Turning Point Action. And so that's when, you talked about that. You heard me on the Charlie Kirk show, and you applied, and then you met Mason. Now it's full circle where you're working for Turning Point Action and making a huge difference now. And so, but that's all these groups right here, whether it's the College Republicans of America, Turning Point Action, Run Gen Z. We all work together to hopefully make a better future. And, that's where I want to transition into what we're going to talk about with the RNC and the failed Youth Advisory Council that they had. Because it's interesting, because a couple of folks are going to talk up here about how they weren't even invited to sit on the council, which was odd. But, Caroline and myself, being a former state rep and a current state rep in Texas, initially joined this council back in March. Again, it was called the Youth Advisory Council that Chairwoman McDonald had started and had asked us to sit on, and we were happy to sit on it because we want to help people, every organization, right? And then soon after we were sitting on it, we realized there's not really much happening here, right? It's a Zoom call maybe once every quarter. The Zoom links weren't even working. It was very hard to even be able to do the small participation that they required of us, and that's ultimately when ourselves and several of the other state representatives that we're friends with that we helped get on the committee decided to do a resignation letter and said, hey, we're not going to just be a pretty face on this committee. We actually want to go out there and do the work. And we work with other groups that do that. And one of the frustrating things about sitting on this council was that a lot of our friends in these other organizations that directly are impacting youth turnout and the youth vote and youth recruitment weren't even asked to serve on the committee, which was odd. So, Caroline, just start out, talk about why initially you might have joined the committee and then why you decided to kind of resign and join that letter with myself and the other reps, and how that led to that situation, but then also what your opinion is of how we can actually go out and affect youth turnout, not only for next election cycle, but for years to come.
Yeah, so I want to start and ask, have any of y'all heard of the organization called Run for Something? Does anybody? Okay, a few people. So I'm just going to give you some statistics about what they're doing. They're a liberal organization that recruits young people to run for office. They have successfully recruited around 147,000 people since 2017. And in 2023, they got 182 people elected out of 300 people that they backed. So when we talk about how the left has things organized and figured out, they do. They really do. And so I'm so proud to work with Run Gen Z. And that's why I was so excited to get to be a part of the council, because I thought, okay, great. We are finally, as the Republican Party, organizing and, trying to meet what the left has been doing since 2017 and before that. And so I was so excited. And, I think we're all here because we want to win, and we want the tangible keys and tools. We need to learn that stuff to figure out how to win, right? And so I think that was honestly the biggest disappointment was, we're all here to be boots on the ground, to put in the work, to put in the hours. We just didn't have the goal. We weren't given targets to reach, so it didn't really seem like it was practical and it was really doing anything. And y'all heard everybody up here. I mean, we have results, and a lot of that comes from knocking doors for me. Again, I think that's one way that we really can get the youth vote out. I mean, I don't know how many times I knocked on the door and I was talking to, a mom or a dad, and they said, wait right here. And they'd go get their kid that was either around my age or a little bit younger, and they said, look, she's running for office. You need to get involved. And I was able to get them plugged in. A few of them said, she's single too, by the way, so, I'm now married. But anyway, yeah. So anyway, I say all that to say we're all here to get practical results. We want to win. We don't want any missed opportunities. And so that was ultimately why we made the decision. We want to make sure that we are maximizing our time, that we are in front of people like y'all who are willing to put in the work, and that we're engaging the other organizations that also have been winning, that also have been showing that they're willing to get out there and do the work if given the targets and the goals. So just an encouragement to y'all, if you have anyone in your life that's around our age, let them know, hey, there's this organization that will help you if you want to run for county commissioner, school board. I mean, y'all, local is where it starts. And then that builds the pipeline to where we then have great people that can run for Congress and for Senate and these other, monumental seats. And so that's just an encouragement to y'all, and that's kind of a wrap up on how we came to that decision.
So, Will, I wanted to start with you on this. You run the College Republicans of America. You guys are the largest College Republicans organization in the country now, and have really taken over what the CRNC the shell of what it once was. And so you guys work with thousands of college Republicans. You said 8,000 members that you guys have in your between your chapters. And so my question is, because you didn't serve on there with me, were you even asked to serve on the committee by anyone at the RNC?
I didn't even know the committee existed.
So exactly, right? So Will runs the College Republicans, essentially, of America, with 8,000 members. He wasn't even asked to sit on this committee. And so that's, what the first kind of red light I seen is that there's folks like Will, and we're going to Turning Point Action admit, that aren't even sitting on this committee, which just seems funny in itself. And so, Will, talk about what the College Republicans do and how you guys, proactively right now are working to get tangible results to get the youth turnout come 2024.
Absolutely. College Republicans do three things. First and foremost, most importantly, we are campaigners. We campaign. We're the grassroots of the party. Second, we do community service in off seasons. We have a campaign we call Project Teddy, so we clean up forests and beaches and rivers. We care a lot about environmental conservation. And then we also work a lot on professional development. One of our main goals is to bolster groups like Run Gen Z, like American Moment, like the Heritage Foundation. They're trying to pipeline good students into government jobs. Our job through the College Republicans is to train these students to place them in industry. So we are multifaceted, but primarily our institution exists as a campaign force. And we've got hundreds of students that are activated right now, that are moving with their state legislators and their state parties. We're flying kids in to help with some of these primary caucuses. That's what we're here for. And the fact that the party overlooked us for a youth council position, we are the party. How do you not ask the College Republicans to be on the youth council of the party? I don't understand this. So, we were a little slighted by that, but that's what happens when you kick guys like Joe off and don't ask guys like us to join. They didn't do anything. And so we are still here. Irana, if you want to invite us to join, I'm right here. You can find my number pretty easy. My email's on the website. But we'd love to help the party win. We need to win. Donald Trump needs to win in 2024. We're going to be on the ground. We're happy to partner with Turning Point Action to help them chase ballots. We're very excited. My conversations with Tyler and Charlotte have been great, and we're really excited to work with Turning Point Action. But we have to work with Turning Point Action because there's no recourse in the GOP, right? That's where we're at right now. Is private industry has to pick up the slack and do this. So I wish the party would get on board.
Yeah, 100%. And so following up on that, Cooper and Luke, you guys can split this question, but again, I don't believe Turning Point Action was even asked to be on or serve on the committee or the council. And so, again, am I correct on that?
Yeah, you're correct.
And the other thing is, too, is, okay, we all know Tyler is the RNC committee man for Arizona, right? He's literally part of the RNC. And the fact that they didn't want to ask Turning Point Action to serve on that council is pretty absurd in itself. And so, Luke and Cooper, talk about your guys' humongous efforts to get out the youth vote. And I just want you guys to go over that first before I do any more digs, but just talk about what you guys do at Turning Point Action specifically on the youth vote front.
Right. And, to echo what Charlie said yesterday, we wish the RNC was efficient in these states, nationwide and in these battleground states. But, these decisions to have Turning Point Action, College Republicans of America, and organizations like Run Gen Z to not give them a seat at the table and not include them is the reason that they're kind of in the state that they are now. They think it's more important to do these presidential debates in Alabama and these states that aren't even in battleground areas, wasting donor dollars there. But Turning Point Action, we have a boots on the ground operations in all of our battleground states. We're registering voters on college campuses, recruiting precinct chairs, getting people involved with their county Republican Party.
Yeah. And kind of piggybacking off of that, I don't know, a lot of you are probably familiar too that, Students for Trump, that was the original, project of Turning Point Action. So it's always been about getting out the youth and the young conservatives to get out there and actually vote. So this upcoming election cycle, I mean, our field reps are out there day in and day out. They're out there at, the college campuses, and they are registering voters. And I will tell you right now that, young people, they're starting to see through a lot of, what's being shoved down their throats. And I'll tell you, a lot are standing up, and thank God that we have brave, young conservatives that are willing to stand up there, and that they're going to, get involved with the TPUSA chapter, and they're going to go out there and stand up for their rights. But also, they're getting involved with us, and they're becoming precinct delegates. You know how cool it is to be able to say, like, Turning Point Action's been able to be that, that bridge to be able to bring these young people into the actual, GOP and help train them on how to be in Michigan, it's a precinct delegate, how to be an effective precinct delegate. And then, they go on to their, maybe executive committee, and I see them at state convention, and they're coming up to us at our booth, and they're like, man, if it wasn't for you guys, like, I wouldn't be here right now. I mean, that's just like the most rewarding thing to see. So I'm just so excited to see what we are going to continue to do, because, we're just getting started. I mean, if you see the momentum that we've got, there's no stopping us. And,
So again, if anybody can tell me why these two guys or three guys in their groups weren't included on the Youth Advisory Council, I mean, I'd like to know that, right? And that's kind of why, part of the reason why we're here. But the other thing is that we're not here because we're anti-RNC, right? We wanted a strong RNC. That's why we're here, today, and that's why we're here this weekend, and that's why, Tyler and Charlie have decided to put this conference on, because we want to make the RNC the best entity it can be for the Republican Party. So we can have a strong Republican Party, not just for next election cycle, but for 10, 15, 20 years to come and more. And so, let's talk about, let's kind of get in the weeds here. And Luke, we'll start with you and Cooper. Can you guys talk about, how folks here, county chairs, RNC committeemen, committeewomen, candidates maybe running for those seats, how they can help you guys with, precinct recruitment, all the tasks that you guys kind of undertake, and how they can be helpful with that on the youth side specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. Something that you guys, obviously, you're obviously in our battleground states, so obviously having us come out, maybe your county chair, having us get on the agenda and making sure that we're showing up, and it's going to be so pivotal. You guys have been able to see firsthand, the app that we're going to be, launching across the entire, country, and we're going to need to be able to train, your guys' executive committees and your guys' delegates and PCs and stuff on how to be able to utilize this stuff. So making sure that you're getting us into your actual monthly meetings and stuff to be able to speak at it, that's, first and foremost. Outside of that, we're going to be, launching massive coalitions. If you want to be a help to us, meet with us and sit face to face and understand what our goals are, which, one of the big ones is going to be building these coalitions out. And, it varies state by state, but one of the best things you're going to be able to do to help us as well as yourselves, because ultimately we're not in it, for our own, benefit or anything. It's literally to be able to save the country. So help us grow these coalitions. Maybe it's a Moms Coalition. Maybe it's a Faith Coalition. That's something near and dear to my heart in Michigan. I mean, that's the kind of stuff you guys can help with, first and foremost. And then at the end of the day, in the back end, we're going to be able to chase those ballots utilizing those coalitions. So I would say right now that's the biggest focus.
Okay.
Yeah, and one thing I'll just add to what Luke said is if you're here, that means you're probably in one of our top 10 battleground states that our organization has identified. And the way we have our states lined up is we have a field representative assigned to that territory in each state. So that means if you're here, if you don't know who the field representative is for your Turning Point Action field representative for your state, you can come see Luke, you can come see myself after the panel, and we'd be happy to put you in contact with that individual.
Yeah, great. Will, same question for you. How can folks here that are sitting in the audience be helpful to college Republicans and help with recruitment, help send people your way? And then also, I guess, is there anything you guys are doing once they're out of college Republicans to push them towards the county parties and to get involved kind of post-graduation?
Absolutely, and they don't need to wait until they're after college. We're trying to push them into the county parties while they're in college. One of my primary objectives when I was chairman of the California College Republicans in Orange County was to make sure that all of our students at UC Irvine and Cal State Fullerton were involved with the Orange County Republican Party. The current chairman of the California College Republicans is 20 years old. But you clap too soon. He's also the chairman of the Alameda County Republican Party. We pushed him in immediately. We're not waiting around. Our kids need to be involved with the party.
Right.
And so the best way that the county parties can help is if we are not at your nearest college yet, because we've been around for 9 months, right? We're trying to rebuild the infrastructure, and we built very quickly. 120 chapters in 9 months is not easy to build. If we get one person in these universities, even in a state we're not even in, one person is an anchor in the chapter, we can train them to build their chapter up, start recruiting new members, they can spread to nearby chapters, and it just grows on itself. So we're still trying to get into some of these states. The state of Wyoming and Alaska completely died. There's no more chapters there. And so getting one person on those chapters is a little difficult. If the state party and the county parties have college students that work on their campaigns, that are in college, that are working with the GOP already, send them to us, we'll train them up, we'll get their chapters started, and what that means is you will have more grassroots activists not only attending your party meetings, but knocking on doors and making phone calls for your local elections. It's very important that this infrastructure gets rebuilt so that all of the county parties can benefit from the college Republicans being around.
So, Caroline, let's hit on Run Gen Z again one
Yeah.
moment. How can these guys be helpful in the crowd? And again, for Run Gen Z, we work with folks from 18 to 30.
Yeah.
And so we want, anybody 18 to 30 that's in your guys' local parties, that's a niece, that's a nephew, that's a conservative, that's a young person, to get plugged in with us as well. So you want to give some more kind of information on that.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add is when we have the annual Run Gen Z conference or any meetings, they're very similar to this in that we really highlight people who have won their races, what they did to win them. That's actually one of the reasons why I was so motivated to knock doors, because at the meeting that I went to, there's a young man who had run for city council, and he was talking about the impact that he was able to have knocking on doors. And so the next day, actually no, that day after the panel, I called my boss. I said, listen, I need to take 3 months off of unpaid leave just so I can knock doors every day if I'm going to win this election. And so it's practical, again, practical tools that we are equipping young people. And whether they decide to run for office or not, these tools are going to help them. What they learn through Run Gen Z will help them in whatever position they're in, whether they are organizing people to go block walk, whatever level of the party. And so, like Joe said, if you know anybody that's in that age range and they're looking to get plugged in, or they really do want to run for office, send them to Run Gen Z. I am currently a mentor for 2 young women who are running for office. One of them's in Texas, in Amarillo. She's 24. And you have to be 25 to get elected, so she will turn 25 right before November. But I love being able to mentor, especially these young women. Joe and I were just talking about, we really don't have a lot of young women that are stepping up to run. And I will tell you, as a woman, it is difficult, I mean, you do have a lot more barriers, I think, to knowing, hey, I can step up and I can do this. And so if you have young women in your life in particular, really encourage them that, hey, this is something you can do. I've seen, these young women stepping up. You can do it too. And so just let them know, spread the word about Run Gen Z. Again, the left has many organizations that recruit liberal young people to run for office and get involved. And we don't have as many. And so do what you can to get our name out there. Again, Run Gen Z. After this, come talk to Joe and I and see who we can call and talk to, anyone that's a young person that might be interested. Because we need to win in 2024, but we also need to keep winning after that. I mean, we're hyper-focused on 2024, as we should be. But we talk all the time about the next generation. Well, we are the next generation, you know, and we need to start focusing on the next generation behind us already. For 2028, you know, for 2032, which sounds like it's really far away, it's really not. And so any way that y'all can help us get our name out there, get more young people involved in running for office would be great. And again, feel free to come chat with us after this.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off of what Caroline said is, again, we want to help anybody and anybody that's conservative, that's 18 to 30, you know, be able to run for these local and state offices, and that could be, you know, dog catcher to state senate. That's
Right.
what we're working
Yeah.
with, right? We've worked with folks that are on like their ceremony or sorry, I'm blanking right here.
That's all good.
That have worked on their library trustee board that they ran for in Idaho. So like there's everything and anything that these folks can run for, and there's like 300,000 elected positions across the country that you don't even think about, that you can get into something and make a difference and use that as a stepping stone to eventually run for state representative, school board, city council, and all those sort of things. So our website is rungenz.com, and that's where you can go to refer folks to run, and then we'll get in contact with them to help them out. But I want to move on to Q&A, and so if folks have questions for any of these folks up here, we want to hear those. We want to answer your guys' questions about, again, getting more young people involved in the movement, because, again, these guys are the future of the movement. We want to make sure that we're being helpful where we can and answer those questions. So.
Yeah.
Oh, is that on? Oh. How you doing, guys?
Good.
Hey,
Good.
first I just want to thank you and compliment you. So young, yet wants to get involved in moving our republic forward. My question to you guys is, I teach a biblical citizenship class at my church through Patriot Academy. Rick Green,
Yes.
as you know, does a lot of work with Charlie. Turning Point supports it through biblical citizenship. Rick Green has an organization that he runs. It's called Leadership Congress. People from the age of 16 to 25 can go, and there's several states that he has. Right now they're functioning in 6 states where people from all over the country, if they want to learn how to be representatives, to represent our republic, can go there. They have mock Congress there. They have everything there where they actually debate. They actually go through this whole entire process. I'm going to be sending my 2 girls there when they turn 16 to get trained up. My question to you folks is, have you guys tapped into that information, and are you working together with Patriot Academy in this effort to educate our young to get involved?
Well, so in Texas, we have a huge program in Texas with that program. And, you know, I think that's a great connection for Run Gen Z to make because, you know, Run Gen Z is focused on the campaign side of things. And that program is talking about, hey, once you get elected, here's what you're going to face, you know, and they really do a great job of not only teaching you what you might need to learn if you got elected, but also just how to be involved as a citizen, you know? I mean, even if you're not going to run, just knowing it from a practical standpoint is awesome for those kids. So, yes, I'm sure Run Gen Z, I'm sure we'll work with them more in the future. Thanks for bringing that up.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for all that you're doing. My name is Louisa. I'm from Southern California, and I understand that you're encouraging young people, college Republicans, to get involved with their local central committees. So my question is this. What are you doing to train them in how they participate once they are in the central committees? Because being on the central committees myself in California, I've noticed that the majority of people there are A, filling seats, and B, even if they weren't filling seats, they don't know how to effectively move anything they want to accomplish. And because you promote conservative principles, the assumption would be that you want to maintain those conservative principles both on a state and county levels. And so again, how do you train them so that they know how to effectively move that conversation? You know, primarily, typically using Robert's rules. Are they equipped to do so? And what do you train them in terms of? Do you know what your job will be? Do you know what you can do? And do you know how to do it? That's my question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I think that a lot of what you just went over is exactly what we do with a lot of the the people that we recruit to become precinct delegates, central committee members. We do extensive Robert's Rules trainings, and what you can do also, like whoever your field rep is, like you said, if you need to find out who that might be in your territory, come up to us afterwards. I mean, there's a lot of Turning Point Action staff around this conference, and we'll figure it out. But yeah, reach out to us. We can try to set up a Robert's Rules training for not only just the people that we've recruited, but for your entire, maybe executive committee or for the entire county. We can do stuff like that. But yeah, we also train them how to go out and effectively recruit other PCs and precinct delegates. So that's all stuff that we continually hound in on in all of our field reps, is going out there and making sure that we're training these people to be the best that they can be, because they are the future. We want to make sure, like you said, that they are equipped for success, and that that shows too. It's it's an effect of what. Our representation of us, because we want to take pride in the fact that we're doing this the right way, and we do our due diligence to do so.
Hi, thank you. My name is Laurel Eimer. I'm the candidate for RNC Committee Woman for the state of Colorado. And my son is Weston Eimer. Most of you know him. So he's a Gen Z activist, has been involved since he was 12 years old in Colorado. And he sits on the state executive committee. He sits on the RNC Youth Advisory Council. He's an elected official in our community on the water board as a director. But the pushback that he receives, and the pushback that he has received for going on almost 10 years now, is just enormous. And I see that across the board, at least in Colorado, with any of our young Gen Z or even millennials who want to get involved. The pushback from the seniors and the older people, no offense to this room, that are already in politics and have been doing it for 20 or 30 years, I think they're intimidated and they're offended when young people walk in the room. That's what I perceive. And how do we fight that? Because you can't get them involved when all they receive is pushback constantly, that they're not old enough, they don't know enough, they haven't had enough experience. And it's real. Thank you. It's real, right? And I mean, I've been dealing with this for a long time. And I mean, I'm obviously his biggest advocate, but he has to make his own way. And he's done that very, very successfully, but at huge, enormous pushback. So what is your response to that?
I would ask them to look at the age of our founders when they started this country.
Right.
Just saying, Alexander Hamilton wasn't 50 when he started. Our students lack experience. It's true. There is a genuine argument to be made that we are inexperienced. Most of us are becoming self-conscious, like around 14, right? So not a lot of us know exactly what to do. But what we do have is a lot of energy and the ability to learn. And I would caution against pushing young people out of leadership and out of positions in the party. Because, no offense, but you look around the room at the average Republican Assembly meeting, I mean, who's coming up next? If you don't train the next generation, all you do is gatekeep, you're screwed. So take the young people into your party, take them into your central committees, and train them. Don't gatekeep. Tell them what to do, show them how to do it. If they need training in Robert's Rules, give them a handbook, right? Help us out. We're young, and we're very impressionable. Definitely bring us in.
And I'm just going to add to that. That's another thing that I love about Run Gen Z, because now when I was first running, they gave me mentors, people I could call up on the phone and say, hey, did this ever happen to you running, when you were running as a young person? And now I get those phone calls. And it is so rewarding to talk to those young people, this young person, 24 years old, running for state rep, and being able to tell her, yes, I did feel like that. And you know what? Number one, when the Lord calls you to do something, He takes care of you, He provides. I mean, and I could tell you so many stories of how the Lord provided in my race. But to be able to pass that on is so valuable. And so I think that's one thing Run Gen Z does a good job of, is connecting, people like me who have gone through kind of that pushback of, well, you've never had a real job, or you've never done, the tax rolls for a company, or whatever I heard. I'm now able to turn around and say, it's okay. You just need to keep working hard. I'm going to encourage you, and you can get there, and you're going to make a difference one way or another. And so, again, just to brag on Run Gen Z, we are building, again, that pipeline where young kids do have someone to call. And I'd also add to what you were saying, be a mentor. If there's a young person that wanders into your meeting, grab them and say, hey, welcome, and here's what we're doing, and I'll help you learn all this stuff. Because you're right, we don't know everything, but most of us know that we don't know everything, and most of us are willing to accept that help and that advice to learn what we need to really make a difference.
And one more thing. I was 19 when I got into politics. The only reason I was able to join is because 2 members of the 62nd Assembly District brought me in, paid for my membership at a local Republican assembly. They showed me how the ropes work. They started taking me to Central Committee meetings, and I started working on campaigns. It was because 2 guys, Johnny Morgan and Denny Schneider, brought me under their wing and taught me what to do, and now I'm the president of the National College Republicans. That's all it takes.
Right.
Hello, everybody. My name is Brian Chirikawa. I'm here in Las Vegas, and I have an organization called Christian Influencer Convention. So I definitely want to talk to you, kind sir. I don't really have a question. I just have the statement of saying my heart swells for what you guys are doing. I'm an old millennial myself, and you guys are the exact people I want to uplift and bring up, and not only just give them a purpose in life, which is Jesus Christ, and have Amen. Them in their heart. But then I'm also going to be offering job opportunities in the trades for these kids, so they'll be building a base. And then I want to have you guys as Turning Point Action to come in and give them continued education in the Constitution and in activism as well. So I just want to say thank you so much for what you guys are doing, and want to work with you as soon as possible.
Well, thank you for your support, and thank you for being here as well. We'll definitely get in touch with you, and we got our field reps out here we're happy to get you connected to. So.
Hello, I am Waverly Woods. I'm an activist in Virginia, and we did talk earlier. Thank you. I'm so excited. I can't even tell you. So Virginia is a hot mess, and it starts at the top and trickles down. But that said, every state has their own dynamic, right? How do we want these kids in, right? I 1,000% agree. And by the way, I have a nonprofit. It's called Virginia Freedom Caucus. I created it to complement our Freedom Caucus in Congress. So every state could have a Freedom Caucus, but we have one in Virginia. Okay, I would love to have some interns, if that's possible, for my nonprofit. But secondly, we really need to make sure the kids are vetted. Like, do we know we have the right kid? Because it's so easy to get sucked into the position of power or working for a politician, and that's what we see in Virginia, that the glamorization of it is where we lose them, and the principle of it is where we don't keep them. And so I want to have our youth engage. We want to train them. I completely 1,000% support that. But how do we vet them to make sure and keep them on that straight path so that they don't deviate by the little sparkly thing that's over here hanging in front of them, and they stay on principle?
Well, I guess I can talk to that. I think that it's very important that when you do get them involved, that you're intentional with them, right? Like, you're really you're getting to know them and helping them understand like what the big mission is and like what the end goal is, and that's to save our country. And there is in politics, there's a whole lot of lights and glamour like you're talking about since some of these roles, but if their heart's in it and they're the right kind of person that you want to be there for the long haul, they're going to understand what that mission is when you guys go over it. So I would say just being there for them and just being very intentional with these individuals that you get involved. So.
In Virginia, I have found that our homeschoolers are more principled than our public schoolers.
Yep.
So
I was homeschooled.
Anybody coming to Virginia, just giving you a heads up.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Young lady, you're absolutely correct. God does not call the equipped. He equips the called.
Amen.
And when he calls, you better answer, because you don't want what happened to Jonah to happen
Right.
to you when he didn't want to go to Nineveh.
No fun.
Bruce Parks, Washoe County party chairman. I'd just like you to know that through our efforts in recruiting young people, we've lowered the aggregate age of our Central Committee by 15 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's significant. Well, yeah, I only say that because I'm challenging the other county sheriffs to do the same thing.
Right.
Without the young people, we're dying organizations. My question to y'all is, when you coming back to Washoe County?
Well, I'm knocking doors in my life. All right, we'll powwow after this, and we'll get you a date. Does that work? And any of you guys are more than welcome to join me knocking doors in Texas. I'm just going to throw that out there. If you need more to do, come join me.
Thank you. My name is Roman Buehler. Many years ago when I was young, I was counsel for Newt Gingrich on election reform issues. And I saw how Newt built a team, a grassroots team of, first of all, of young people, eventually of members of Congress who changed their world in that time. And just as now they were confronting a corrupt establishment that didn't want anything to change in Washington. And so I'm interested in your reaction to the following idea, that we talk a lot about the abuse of power, but we are still looking for people who will talk about taking power away from politicians and bureaucrats in Washington instead of just using that power for their own ends. And I wonder if you think that the idea of taking power away from Washington might motivate people, specifically, for example, taking away the power of politicians to manipulate the size of the court, or taking away the power of bureaucrats by requiring that regulations be approved by Congress, or even taking away their power to borrow money with a balanced budget amendment. Do you think any of those ideas would motivate young people? And if you would, I'd love to talk to you.
So I'm going to start on this because in Texas right now, that very thing is playing out with regards to the border. So I don't know, I'm sure you guys have seen in the news Shelby Park and the federal government trying to come in and cut the razor wire that we as the state have put up, right? And I'm so thankful for Governor Abbott saying, no, we're going to put up even more because we are trying to secure our border. It's our constitutional right as a state to secure our border. And I'm going to tell you, I was at the border in October at Shelby Park, that's been in the news, standing there at the boat ramp, and this crew of 30 illegal immigrants walked up behind me straight to Border Patrol and said, okay, here, process us, we're ready to go. And that was within probably an hour. It was group after group after group. And so when we talk about an invasion, it's happening. It is an invasion. But this, I think, is a great topic for us to use to talk about how we do need to take some of the power away from the federal government and bring it back to the states and even to the local level. I mean, oh my gosh, school board used to be, well, okay, maybe that's important. Now, oh my gosh, we are seeing how important all these local races are and these local levels are. And so I think we have such prime opportunity to talk about that right now, and we are. At least in Texas, we have that conversation all the time, and I do think it has motivated people to get more involved just by watching the federal government being so willing to open the doors up in Texas and let anybody in. And when I say anybody, it's anybody. I mean, y'all know that. But anyway, I'm glad you brought that up. That's definitely a big topic of conversation in Texas right now with those issues. But
okay, I got to apologize to the last two. Our time is up. We're going to be back behind stage, so please come grab us. If you guys have any more questions, give these guys a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right, guys. We're up for our next act. We're excited to be. Yesterday, you heard from our Tea Party Patriots group. Let's give it up for Jenny Beth Martin. Jenny Beth has been at this longer than anyone I know. Has seen things through from start to finish with the Tea Party Patriots. We're so grateful for the work that she and Jeff are doing. There's a number of individuals who have been in Georgia, at least for some time, that have worked with Tea Party Patriots specifically on making sure that our polling places are staffed and that our polling places are properly watched. Those of you that are county chairs in this room know how difficult it is of a task to staff poll watchers at every single precinct, right? How difficult that is. And there's very few organizations that are out there that help with that. It's been my privilege and honor to work with the Tea Party Patriots because I can tell you in Arizona and in Georgia and a few other key states, without their help, it would have been nearly impossible to staff all of the shifts for all of the polling places that we need for poll watching. So we're grateful for their work. It is my honor and pleasure to introduce back to the stage Jenny Beth Martin. And no, not yet. Okay, we're working on it. Okay. Well, we'll stretch out a little more time here. Well, it's my honor to introduce Jenny Beth Martin and her colleague Lynn Taylor. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you so much. Okay, and where's the clicker? I need the clicker also, please. Someone will get that for me. So, perfect. Thank you very much. So yesterday we talked about the problem. I told you that our mantra at Tea Party Patriots Action is secure and win for 2024. And we talked about the winning portion. Right now we're going to talk about the securing portion. And we know the problems that we are dealing with. And this is Lynn Taylor with the Election Integrity Network, and she's also going to be presenting with me. Thank you. And she works very closely with Cleta Mitchell. And they work together in the Election Integrity Network. Cleta is in London with her grandchildren and couldn't be here. And Lynn is here. So she's not just some strange person standing with me. She's part of the program. So we know all of the issues. You heard a lot about what you can do for election integrity yesterday. What we want to talk to you about today is the importance of making sure that you actually have an election integrity task force within your county. Now, you may already have this, and if you do, that's great. And if you do, then please pay attention and figure out if you're covering every single step or lane that we talk about. And if not, then you probably want to figure out how you can build out those lanes. And then if you don't have a task force already, then make one. And it might be that you have to join together with some other people in the county who are already working on election integrity and create, instead of a task force, maybe it's an election integrity coalition for your county. But I really think it's important that you're working together as one and not a whole bunch of different groups doing election integrity. And here's why. And it's different than what I said when the Tea Party movement started. Like if somebody came up to me when the Tea Party movement was getting started and they'd say, I can't meet on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock because my kids have soccer every single week and I can never be at any of these meetings. I'd say, oh, well, what day can you meet? And they'd say, well, I can meet on Tuesday afternoons at noon. I'd say, well, then you should just start a Tea Party group and meet at Tuesday afternoons at noon. It's like churches in the South. You can't have too many. We all are speaking from the same book, the Constitution in this case. So we did that. But on this, I don't recommend it. I think it's very important that you're working together, that you're sharing information, that you know what is happening within your county, and then when you're going and talking to your election board or to the people who work for the election office, that you're doing it in a manner that you're not inundating them with 15 different groups asking them for information, because that employee who works there is going to prioritize her work and choose what she or he thinks is the most important work to be done, rather than you prioritizing it and then presenting it as one request in the order you want to receive it in. Okay, we're going to talk more about that in a moment, but I just want to explain to you why it's important to have a single task force. Can we really make a difference in elections? That's something that you're going to be asked over and over this year in your position. Oh, yeah, we need to win, but it doesn't matter. My ballot doesn't count because we can't trust the outcome of the elections. And to that, I say that you can and that we are making a difference and that we're much better prepared than we were in 2020. And I can even point to a very specific example where building out these task forces created a situation where it changed and made sure that the correct results were certified. In Georgia, in DeKalb County, Georgia, which is a Democrat county in Georgia, in 2022 in the primary, a lady was running for county commissioner, and she cast her ballot, and her husband cast his ballot at their precinct. And on election night, she went and watched the returns come in, and her precinct recorded 0 votes for her. And she knew she voted for herself. And her husband said he voted for her too. So she should have had at least 1 vote, and as long as her husband wasn't lying to her, she should have had 2. At least, and she had 0. And so she knew something wasn't right, and she wound up, she's a Democrat. But she knew that the Republicans had been working on election integrity. And they'd done so in a manner to start building bridges with the Democrats in the county on this issue, so that if issues arose, they could at least communicate with one another. And she reached out to the Republicans on the Board of Elections, and they recounted all of the ballots. And in this case, they're scanning it, they're re-scanning all the ballots, and the same results happened. And then they did it again, and the same results happened. But they all knew, including the Democrats and the Republicans, something wasn't right. And so they wound up deciding that they were going to hand count the results for that one race. And that's what they did over Memorial Day weekend in 2022. And one of our employees, Julie Adams, was there, and she wound up getting pulled in to help count those ballots. And the Election Integrity Network in DeKalb County was there. And that network is chaired or led by the county party chairman. Her name is Marcy McCarthy. So they were all there working throughout the weekend, helping on this particular race. And at the end of the day, that lady who had 0 votes and had been declared the third place finisher of the race came in first, went on to the runoff, and now is a county commissioner in DeKalb County, Georgia. So you can make a difference. And the most important thing is that they caught it and they corrected it before certification happened of the ballots. Why is that important? Well, you should know the answer to this, but just in case you don't, I know you guys probably already know this, but it's very important because once it's certified, the only way to get things corrected is through legal action. And we saw how well that worked in 2020. Not at all. And so this way she was able to get it corrected before any legal challenges arose. And that's what we need to be working on. When you see a problem, when you see an issue, when you see a potential problem or potential issue, then you start trying to figure out how can we solve that problem ahead of time so we don't create a bigger issue. So that's the importance of these networks. In 2022, Tea Party Patriots Action worked very much on poll watching, and I want to show you something that we did because there's sometimes precincts that are really hard to fill because volunteers don't want to go do those precincts. It's either too far away, they think the area is unsafe, whatever it might be, they don't like it. Here, we wound up bringing people in, recruiting them, and paying them for their time for that day during the runoff in 2022. Whoops, that did not play. Hang on. It should have a video with it. Can you make that play? You cannot make it play? Okay, they're telling me they can't make it play. That stinks, but we'll get you a link to it later. It's a really amazing video, but we'll get you a link to it later. Okay, so the permanent election integrity infrastructure is this. Let me say one more thing. It's permanent. It means that you've got to be thinking about how you build an election integrity infrastructure in your county that wasn't just for 2022 and is not just for 2024. Right? We want to get through this election and have good results and have secure elections, but it needs to be longer lasting. It needs to be in place in 2026 and 2028 and 2030 and 32. It needs to be permanent so that we're the checks and balances as citizens on the election system itself. Cleta Mitchell is an election attorney. She's amazing. She is one of the best election attorneys on our side of the aisle. She's my friend and my mentor. And she has some rules about what you need to do when you're creating an election integrity task force. And I listen to her when she tells me things that I have to do because she's an attorney. And if she's saying, these are the rules you need to pay attention to, it makes me want to listen to her. So her rules are these. First, you always need to go in pairs. So if you are going to visit an election office or talk to your election supervisor or go to a Board of Elections meeting or go to the state Board of Election meetings or the Board of Commissioner meetings if your commissioners run your elections in your area, you need to go in pairs. Don't just go with one person. Always have someone there. It's a good idea because then you always have a witness to everything that's going on. Also, someone who can nudge you from time to time or you can ask questions with, and it's two people listening so they can go back and report things later. Always go in pairs. Never get angry. Sometimes that's really hard to do, though, because it can just tick you off. If you hear something that you think is wrong and you're listening to it, you're like, wait a minute, I know that that's not right. We need to fix that, or you're not right about whatever it might be. You can't get angry, especially if you're dealing with an employee who is paid by the government and is an election worker. It's extraordinarily important that you keep your cool. And I'm going to really emphasize that when we wrote these rules, this is before what we've seen this past year, but right now we're seeing from the Department of Justice that they are trying to look out for election workers and make sure they don't feel intimidated or harassed at all. And state governments and local governments are doing the same. And if they think that you're doing anything inappropriate, they may wind up trying to charge that volunteer with some sort of crime. And we have seen dramatic weaponization of the government, so it's extraordinarily important that you keep your cool. So if you find something that you don't think is right, what I recommend that you do is listen to what they say, and if you're really frustrated with them, and by the way, if you're standing like in a public comment section at a meeting, if like a Board of Commissioners meeting and you've got the mic for 90 seconds or 2 minutes and you want to pound the podium and say whatever you've got with righteous indignation, go for it. That's fine. That's righteous indignation. But if you're getting in the face of an employee and pointing, no, don't do that. So if you get really frustrated, what I recommend that you do, because I am from the South, just go, bless your heart. If you don't know what that means, you can look it up online. So it sounds nice, and it can be nice. And when we mean it the nice way, we say, bless your heart. And I mean it the nice way. I'm praying for you. But if you just say, bless your heart, then go on, walk outside, and document everything that just happened. Write it all down, take it back to your task force, and figure out how you're going to solve that problem. And when I told these rules to some people in Cochise County, Arizona, someone raised their hand and they said, excuse me, when I get to my car and write everything down, can I get angry then? And I said, absolutely. You can get as angry as you want in your car. Nobody's going to watch you do that. So make sure that you keep on smiling. And I kind of tell that because I think it's funny and it makes you remember to keep smiling. So there are 8 steps that you need to pay attention to. And there is a notebook that we've got at our booth. You can go back over to our booth. Even if you've been there, you need to go back because this was not out yesterday. And it goes through these steps. So you don't have to write all this down because it's in here. When you open up the book, if you just go straight to the middle, right where the staples are, the things I'm about to go through are in that section. 8 steps for an election integrity task force. Step 1, build a presence in the local election office. This is about the making sure that you are ever present in the Board of Elections office to see and hear and learn things that would never be known if you are not there. You need to go in pairs, and you need to make sure that you're going and that you are making a commitment to be at every Board of Election meeting, that you are making a commitment to go and build relationships with the supervisor of elections, and that you are working to build those relationships. This step is about people and presence and personal relationships. Step 2 is researching the local election office. And it is a little bit different because it is researching what happens and understanding the process, researching the contracts, seeing if there are any backroom deals or temporary staffing companies that are paid for by a former gubernatorial candidate that are paying for the staffing for election day, or whatever else may be going on. You want to understand the contracts and the processes going on. Use your state's FOIA laws, the Freedom of Information Act, open record laws, to research everything you can about how your elections are operated and the processes involved. Step 3 is to understand the local and mail-in ballot systems. Learn the procedures, identify potential problems and issues with the absentee mail system. Be very familiar with how your absentee balloting system and your United States Postal Service work in your area. Develop a team to follow the absentee ballots. Step 4 is to become part of the election apparatus. Now that's the part we're focusing on the most at Tea Party Patriots Action. That is the poll watcher and poll worker part. You want people to become part of that. Now, in some states, if there's anyone here from Pennsylvania, I think you're called election judges and inspectors of elections. In other states, there may be a different word. But the worker is the person who, on election day, checks the voter in, makes sure that they get their ballots, they go and they write down or punch the numbers or touch the screen of who they want to vote for, and then they take their ballot over and cast it. The poll workers are the ones who are working in that precinct, making sure that that happens. The poll watchers, of course, you know, are the ones who are watching and observing everything. Now, I want to tell you one more thing that we've got. We have another box. We showed you one yesterday. We have another one today that is about poll watchers and poll workers. And for this box, when you open it, you get a letter that explains to you what's inside the box. And then we have a call to action sheet that you can give out at the end of your presentation. And we have a couple of posters that you can hold up. But then you get to the meat of it, and we've got a PowerPoint presentation that explains the difference between poll workers, poll watchers and tabulation center observers. So it is introductory. If you meet people who are saying, I don't know if I really trust the outcome of the elections, invite them to a meeting where you're going through these processes and urge them to become a poll watcher or a poll worker. And we also have a how-to guide that goes over those same things. It's for the person who doesn't know all of this already. You guys who are in this room know way more. You know, I guarantee you know everything in here already, or most of it, when it comes to poll watching and poll working, because you at the party are the ones who are having to place the poll watchers. But the brand new person who's worried about the outcome of the election, they don't understand all that. So this is a way to teach them about it and recruit them to be poll watchers or workers. And then when they agree to do that, they can either go and become the worker, or you can put them through further training so that they are actually trained to be the poll watcher. So we've got that available for you as well. Okay, I don't want to waste time. Let me just pull the little thing back up. Then the next step is cleaning the voter rolls and list maintenance. And one thing that I have noticed, and you probably have noticed a lot of this as well, we've got amazing volunteers who are going through and researching everything that is happening with the voter roll list. And a lot of the election boards are just simply not taking action to clean them. So one of the things, I've reached out to several different legal foundations, and Lynn may be able to address this more than I can, is that's something that we may need legal action to try to get them cleaned up, but we at least need to know what's happening and document it so that we can go back and figure out the best way to work to clean the voter rolls. Then protecting vulnerable voters. In the handbook that I went over yesterday, I said it's important to know where your nursing homes and assisted living centers are. It is very important to do that. There is a website, protectvulnerablevoters.org, that is part of the American Constitutional Rights Union, and they work on taking care of helping you work with the nursing homes. This is very important to understand, though. Please make sure that you have a liaison to work on this, and that it's somebody who is trusted and calm and level-headed, and that they're working either with Lynn's group or with American Constitutional Rights Union on this issue. The reason for that is you don't want a whole bunch of people going in to a nursing home or an assisted living facility and overwhelming the staff or doing anything that could wind up getting them kicked out and kicked off of public property. And you don't want to do anything that creates liability for you. Lynn's group and ACRU know how to work through this, and so I recommend that you have a liaison with them, and then they're working to help make sure it's done the proper legal way. And that is a slide that explains it. The next one is learn and observe the voting systems and technology. So you want to make sure that people understand how the processes and the technology works. This includes the machines that you use to cast your ballot on, the scanners that you scan the ballots, but it's more than that. It's also the poll pad system. But before you get to the poll pad system, it's what is the software that is going on that is used to give a ballot out to somebody who is an absentee voter? What is the software that is used inside of the election office to check that ballot back in? What are all the different systems that are being used? In 2022 in Georgia, we had an issue with poll pads. It was a weird issue. And when we reached out to the state election office, they said, oh yeah, it's because our server had an update overnight. And I was like, I used to program computers. And I was like, wait a minute, your server had an update overnight in the middle of voting and it knocked down the poll pads statewide and you're okay with this? It's craziness. But though the system, when I say this about the technology, it's much more than the machines that we hear people talking about. It's all of the technology, and it is also the other processes that are in place. What happens when somebody requests a ballot? What is the manual process as they are processing those absentee ballot requests, and they enter it into a computer. They they print out the ballot or do whatever they're doing to get the envelopes so they know where to send it. What are all of the processes throughout the entire thing? And I think that it's very important that you understand, so from when you register to vote, to when you request a ballot, to when you cast the ballot, that is not where it ends. Then it is through any adjudication that has to happen, a ballot's before you get to certification. You've got to understand that entire process from the beginning all the way to the end. And you need to make sure your task force understands it as well. That way, if there are issues, they know what to look for. They know what may be weird but is right and proper. And then they also know what isn't right and proper because they know the entire process. The last step is legislative action and grassroots lobbying. If there are laws that need to be changed, we need to be considering those now and working on them. One thing that I think needs to happen, and I'm not sure if we can get it done in time for 2024, I really think that we have got to find a way to clean up the National Voter Registration Act and other legislation federally that goes along with that, so that when a person registers to vote, they have to show proof of citizenship. It's illegal to vote right now if you're not a citizen, but they're not requiring proof of citizenship to register to vote. And I think that's just insane because I have a real ID now. Have any of you gone to get that, like from your DMV? You have to have your driver's license. You have to have your proof of residency. You have to have your lease or your mortgage. There's all sorts of information that you have to have. If you're married, you have to have your marriage certificate, like all of this information, and they keep re-upping and making you re-show it every few years. Yet when you go to register to vote, you don't have to prove that you're a citizen. It does not make sense to me, and I think that's something we need to be thinking about and seeing if there's any way we can attach it to legislation in Congress early this year, in the next couple of months, to clean it up. I don't know if we can or not, but it's something I'm currently working on. That's the overview. Now, what we do at Tea Party Patriots Action, if you'd seen that video, you would see we place a lot of people as poll watchers. In 2022, we trained 20,000 people. The RNC placed 80,000 people as poll watchers. We did 20,000 of it. We didn't do all of it, but we did a lot. And we decided that's the thing that we can do. We can bring people in, give them an overview, train them as poll watchers, and then let them go get placed as poll watchers, or they can sign up and be poll workers. And then we ask, what are the other things that you care about when it comes to election integrity? If they care about cleaning the voter rolls, or they care about technology, or they care about protecting vulnerable voters, we gather all that information, and then we let them know that Lynn and Cleta have this amazing group with lots of national working groups and state working groups, and they go into all the rest of the details. Remember yesterday when I said 20% of the volunteers do 80% of the work? They're taking that 20% of the volunteers who do the 80% of the work, and I'm working with 80% of the volunteers who do 20%. So you go now.
Thank you so much. My name is Lynn Taylor. I'm the chairman of the Election Integrity Network, but I want to back up just for a couple of minutes because I want to tell you that I'm also the president of the Virginia Institute for Public Policy. We have been in existence. We're a state-based think tank. We've been in existence for 27 years. And then 2020 happened. And we realized overnight, if we were going to work on if we were going to work on education reform, tax reform, health care, regulatory sandboxes, we were never going to get any of that through if we did not do something about election integrity. And that's why we're here, because we hadn't worked on it before then. In 2021, we put together a coalition, our first coalition in Virginia, just to see what we could do and see if there was any way that we could stem the tide of what we thought might be fraud. I mean, Mike Lindell's group was doing great work on, and we didn't know anything about evidence. We didn't know anything about how do you go prove something like that. That group was doing a wonderful job. What we wanted to do was to look forward and see, Well, if they're looking to see if there was anything wrong, is there any way we can prevent things from going wrong? And that's when we came up with the Virginia Fair Elections Coalition. And really what it was a platform for all of these groups that were in Virginia who were working on particular aspects of election integrity just to come together, have a conversation. And what it did was it kept us from falling all over each other and wasting a whole lot of resources. And it worked really well. As everyone knows, the powers to be changed in 2021 in Virginia. And that was pretty monumental. What we decided to do was to take what we call the Virginia model, and by the way, I have a little booklet, and if you don't have one out there with you, they are on the table at Tea Party Patriots, where you've been there before, and it will tell you what it is that we did. What we decided is to work with the Election Integrity Network, and we put on 9 summits. The Election Integrity Network put on 9 summits in 2022 in 9 different states. And we worked with people like Tea Party Patriots. We worked with people like Gina Swoboda and Voter Ref and AMAG and a whole lot of other folks who came together, left their logos at the door because we had important work to do. In 2023, we actually began what we call national working groups. And I'm going to go over a quick list of those with you, and I actually had to write them down because I want to make sure I don't miss any. And what this is this is people working across states, from state to state on certain issues. One of them is the Citizens Research Project, and it utilizes FOIAs and open records requests to track the dark money, if you will, their money and their activities inside the states. The second one is with the U.S. Postal Service because, as we believe, the U.S. Postal Service is the country's largest precinct, and there doesn't seem to be anybody watching anything there. We also have a national working group on vulnerable voters, one on legislation, on stopping ranked choice voting, technology, auditing, voter roll cleanups, and a new one in building local task forces. So we have 9 right now, and we have another one coming on board because Lord knows we need to do something about citizens voting as opposed to non-citizens voting, and that will be coming online. We have spent these several years knitting together citizens, organizations, activists, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a permanent election integrity infrastructure. I don't know if you know it up here, but I am a great deal older than she is, which means I am not a spring chicken, which means I don't have time for the 40-year plan to change. We have to do something, we have to do it right now, and it has to be permanent, because what happens when we're gone? Are we going to wait and let the Runsies guys were wonderful, but do we want them to have to start over and make it up again? I don't think so. So the point is that in 2021, we had 1 coalition. In 2022, we had 11. At the end of 2023, we have over half the country has state coalitions. They're building local task forces because that's where the problems are found before the election, and that's where they're fixed before the election. Because Jenny Best's absolutely correct. When you try to just do it afterwards, you don't get where you need to be. It's all gone by. And one of the things that we're working on now is actually what we term 3M, is helping these organizations with 3 things. We know that the conservatives are not necessarily grand at this. Actually, there are a lot of people who are not grand at this. One of them is money, messaging, and manpower. And that's what we're trying to help these folks, these citizens in these states, learn how to do, because they need all 3. And we are absolutely delighted to have been invited here, and we thank you so very much. And we would like for you to go to our website. It's called whoscounting.us. whoscounting.us. So, and we're happy for you to go and get brochures on the Election Integrity Network. If you don't have one in front of you, I think we were going to pass them out, but that may not have happened. But they are at the Tea Party Patriots booth, their table, and you're invited to have whatever you need from these. Thank you so much for spending time with us.
And Lynn, Cleta has a podcast, right?
She did. She is not doing the
She's not
podcast
doing that
now, but we
anymore?
do have the archives are
Okay.
on the website, Who's Counting Us.
And she has a lot of interviews with
She
people
does.
who are election experts, so it's a good resource to go back and learn about different issues. Now, with that, that's what we have for the presentation. We wanted to open it up in case people have questions about how to pull all this together. If you already have people working on election integrity in your area, but you don't have a formal task force or overall coalition, we can answer any questions about that as well. Any questions? Yes. I'm not working with him, but we're in touch with.
We
True
are.
the
Yeah,
Vote.
we know him well, but I don't know what I mean. What do you mean by working with? Oh, well, they just wanted in a
Right.
Yeah.
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 Related to cleaning the voter rolls.
Oh, right.
Yeah. No, I think that they do amazing work when it comes to cleaning the voter rolls, and they've been doing this for years. Catherine is one of the Tea Party organizers who was targeted by the IRS. I was also.
Yeah.
She was also targeted by the ATF at the same time the IRS was targeting her. And she does amazing work when it comes to cleaning the voter rolls and exposing issues with election administration problems, and has been for a very long time. And I encourage people, especially when you're working on cleaning the voter rolls, to work with her organization as well. But if you're working on that is very, very, very important. But we also have to make sure that you're working on poll watchers. But that's not all. You also have to make sure that you've got people who understand the technology. And obviously, Mike Lindell is doing tremendous work on that. And then you also have to know how to talk to the election supervisors and build those relationships and work on legislation. It takes all of it. It's not just one aspect, and that's why we want to make sure you understand there's a lot to this. And Cleta is the one who developed this overarching plan, and it covers all those different bases.
And one of the things that we've found out since then is that when we started with poll watchers and poll workers, then those folks the next year, they turned into, if they were poll observers before, then they turned into poll workers the next year. And then they became the heads of their local task forces in their county. And lo and behold, the year after that, they're on the electoral board.
Yeah.
It is amazing how this is working. And those people, they understand exactly what we're talking about, and they don't need to be vetted, which is really lovely. And it's amazing how much you can get done when you have people on the inside. Do you have a question?
I do. My name is Maria Holiday from Johnson County, Kansas. It's basically the suburbs of Kansas City. As the chair, I've been building that relationship with our election commissioner. He's one of 4 in our state who's appointed by our so-called Republican Secretary of State, but answers to our very liberal Board of County Commissioners. After the last election, we were trying to reconcile our ballot chase numbers that had, everything from who was sent an advance ballot, when did it get returned, did they vote in person, and so forth. But we couldn't get the numbers for actual Tuesday voting. So we went in to talk about it because in Kansas, you voted on Tuesday, but if your ballot was postmarked by Tuesday, they count them Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So our numbers change over and over and over. There'll be unofficial counts repeatedly. So we went in and said, I want the list of who voted on Tuesday. They can't give us that list because they use one system, to your point, that does all of their advance ballot, and then they use another system for actual voting on Election Day. And the two don't talk to each other, so they try to back out of it the same way that we did by eliminating all of the people, but then you get to a number that's larger because not everybody voted.
How do they make sure that the people who are voting on Election Day haven't already cast a ballot through the absentee mail-in process?
Yeah.
They aren't able to, you're not sure the answer to that?
They use a number and they tell us they can do that, but then shouldn't they be able to tell us who in fact voted on that Tuesday? They can't. The other thing I asked for before we even got to that point, and this was prior to the election because I'm not trying to poke people in the eye that I'm trying to build a relationship with. By the way, if you do eyebrows up, you can't frown at people, so even when they're ticking you off, if you keep your eyebrows up, you have to smile.
That's lovely. I love it. Can I steal that and use it for my own? That's
Tip,
great.
eyebrows up. That's what they tell all the cheerleaders. I wasn't always this size. But so beforehand, we asked if we could have a copy of processes and procedures for how advanced ballot applications are done and so forth, because we realized they were giving us a list that said they were mailed, and the list was actually what was requested, not necessarily what was mailed. So they said to us, well, every county does it differently.
Yes.
That seems wrong, but okay. Can you tell me how my county does it? Can you please give me the processes and procedures for Johnson County? Well, we don't actually have any that are written. So I'm looking for, without becoming an adversary, how do I push? There should be processes and procedures. Am I wrong?
I don't think you're wrong, and I'm going to answer and then you answer as well. I think a couple of things. First, you mentioned that you have people, you're talking to the state commissioner for elections, correct?
I'm talking to our local election commissioner. He is appointed by the state.
Okay, so he's a local election commissioner appointed by the state, and what area does he represent in Kansas?
Johnson County, which is suburbs of Kansas City.
So it's just one county?
One county.
And he doesn't have, they don't have documented in your county how they do this?
No.
So I would start asking questions about what can we do to document it. I'd also check the state open record laws and FOIA laws, because it might be that you say, okay, if you don't have it documented, then I want all the emails back and forth between the employees. I want any memo back and forth between the employees that explains what's going on. I want the memos and emails back and forth between you and the state. I want to know everything that you send to the poll managers or the people who are the head of running the precinct. In Georgia, it's called a manager. In Pennsylvania, it's a judge. And just start getting as much of that information that you are able to gather through your open records laws to figure out first what exists, and then start working through the grassroots lobbying to get them to write it all down.
So my next question for that then is, because we started that.
Okay.
They are making it so astronomically expensive. As a result, they'll come back and tell us that, it's going to be $1,000. They estimate that it's going to be between $800 and $1,600 in order for them to fulfill our request. And are we willing to pay that?
Well, if it's only $800 to $1,600, that's not astronomical. With one school board request that I had, they told me it was going to be $20 grand. So they do that. And I think that's a problem that our state legislatures really need to go back and address, because when they created the open record laws, they didn't figure out how do we do this so people can actually see the information and make it not cost prohibitive. If you don't have the funding to be able to do it, I would raise the money to be able to do that. If you want it fixed, I'd find a way to raise the money for it. Part of being a leader when you have a group like this is you have to have a fundraising component. And then Lynn is going to address more.
What we have found is that whatever election official is called, whether it's a registrar or what have you, or a clerk, we're finding out that they're not necessarily nefarious. It may very well be that there is something written down and he simply doesn't know. So he says there's nothing. We have found this over and over again. Now, yes, there are some nefarious ones as well. And the various ones, we sometimes have to go to a lawsuit in order to get what we need to have happen. But it's digging deep on what is the information. You had to go back to the law. Was it supposed to be there? You need to go back to the state entity to find out what are their guidances. What do they have written down? And it may be that this particular gentleman just doesn't know the answer, so he says there isn't one.
And also, if he's the person who's appointed by the state, but he's not the person who's like the election, I don't know what it's called where you live, but the supervisor, the person who is working day in and day out and is their paid position to administer elections for your county and manage all of the employees underneath, if you're not talking to that person and building the relationship with that employee, you need to do that as well. That's what I'm talking about. Okay.
So you really have to go, it's kind of like going up the food chain. You have to go up to, and he says, well, every county does it differently. Well, the state has laws. And yes, every county does do it differently, and that's one of the reasons for local task forces, so they can come together to say, this is the law, but everybody's doing it in a different way because they're all interpreting it in a different way because the state did not interpret it for them. This happens all the time. So you go up the food chain until you figure out there really wasn't anything ever written. I'm not sure that that's actually true. I can't imagine that there's not emails, guidances, something that has been written, and maybe he just doesn't know.
Well, when he told me no, I pulled out a handbook from 2012 and asked if they still had that.
Yeah, and what did he say?
He'd never seen it.
So she
and
said,
that may be true.
And she said that she pulled out a handbook from 2012, and that person said he'd never seen it before.
Yeah.
I think you just have to keep digging.
Digging, that's right.
And also, when they say that things are done differently from county to county and you have a question about that, let me just tell you my opinion on that. If we had one voting system for the entire country and everyone voted the exact same way, it would be very easy to figure out a hack to that system and corrupt that system. But because we have 50 states, and each state has different laws, and then most states have they allow the county level to create their own rules and laws for how they handle the elections. Like, I know in Nevada, where we are right now, each county gets to decide which voting system they're using to count the ballots. In Georgia, it's mandatory statewide. It's all the exact same thing, which is unusual. Most states are not like Georgia. But because you've got all those different ways with all the different counties around the entire country, if somebody wants to come in and mess with us, and I think of this more from a national security perspective, get away from 2020 for a minute and pull back to America, the country, and the fact that there are foreign adversaries. I want to make it very difficult for them to harm our elections, and having all those differences helps protect it. It's complicated, it makes our life tougher, but it also makes people who are trying to be corrupt and evil, it makes it much more difficult for them as well.
You can even try in a different county and see if a different county has one.
Yeah.
You would just, particularly if you have somebody who's been around for a long time, a registrar or a clerk who's been around for a long time.
Good afternoon, and Jenny Beth, it's great to see you. You guys look great up there. I just want to extend my gratitude to all the hard work you're doing, and specifically answering some of these tough questions. You were out, Leo Blendo, Nye County Chairman. You came out once, and we started implementing some of the things that you shared with us, and it's really interesting. So, we were the first in the country to do the paper ballots when I was a county commissioner. So we're taking those proactive steps. Do you have any suggestions to share with all the other county chairs on how to continue to move that forward and move this needle and continue the momentum forward?
So
thank you.
With the needle, which do you mean? Just all of this, or like the paper ballot portion?
Because we keep getting requests on like how we did it,
right?
And we'll share that, but I think it needs to be echoed and or shared from like higher authority. I mean, you have a much larger platform and audience, so how can we get that message through you?
First, thank you for all that you do and the work that you guys do, because you gave hope to the rest of the country that a county can make a difference. And I appreciate that. So his county went from the machines to hand counting ballots, correct?
Yes.
And it worked in 2022 in November?
Yes.
They did that, and it worked for them. So, and they did it the week after I was there. I don't take credit for it. They did the hard work, but I'm glad that it had a small part to help with that. I think that the most important thing is when you've got to have elected, in DeKalb County, Georgia, and that slide that I mentioned in DeKalb County, Georgia, there is not a count. I don't think there's a single Republican elected official in the entire county. It is a hard nut to crack if you're a Republican in the state of Georgia. But we have this amazing woman who is the GOP chairman, and she also wanted to be in charge of the Election Integrity Network for her county and worked with us on that. And so I talked to her and I said, look, you've got to, you do not have power in your county in the position that you're in. What if you reach out to your counterpart in the Democrat Party, reach out to the chairman of the Democrat Party, and just talk to them and build a relationship with them and say, we're going to have poll watchers. Are you going to have poll watchers? What can we do to make it easier for the election board? What can we do to make it easier for those people who are working the elections? And then go in and talk to the election board and build the relationships there. Even if you don't think that they're going to agree with you on everything. I mean, it's a Democrat county, and she has good relationships there. And sometimes she butts heads with the decisions that they make, but they still know she's going to be an honest broker. And so I think it's important that you're building the relationship, that you as a leader are building a relationship with the election office workers and with your elected officials. That is one of the most important things, building that relationship. And then you just start researching, and you provide research, and you provide evidence, and you provide solutions. And if you want to move from machines to paper, and your county isn't there yet and not willing to do that, then you keep building the relationships. You also keep working to secure and win elections because we have to have votes to get legislation changed. And when you continue to build those relationships and do the research and work on it, each year you're going to get closer and closer to the goal. Right now in Georgia, there's a trial going on. And it's a Curling v. Raffensperger trial. It's an extension of that. It's been going on since 2018. And the liberal organization and Democrats brought this forward. You know how we heard that Halderman, the professor from Michigan, hacked the machine in open court with a ballpoint pen in a couple of minutes? You may have heard that recently. It's because of the Curling v. Raffensperger case that they filed in 2018. And in 2020, when I heard about that case and what they had discovered, I was so upset with myself for not having paid attention, and they were paying attention. They don't like to talk about 2020, and if I were them, I actually kind of don't blame them because they were working it in 2018 and we weren't paying attention to them in Georgia. But the bigger point is, we're in 2024. It's 6 years later for the resolution, hopefully, of this case. But in the process of that, they've gotten important information and they have evidence and it's been submitted to courts, and whatever comes from that, other people can use to go back and take to your county commissioners and your board of elections. So it takes a long time. We didn't get here overnight, and we're not going to fix it overnight.
That's right. That's right. And we understand that in trying to put this together in a permanent way, we need to be involved in the election process. We need to stay involved in the election process way beyond 2024. Otherwise, it's just going to get worse. We are just simply looking for a free, fair, and transparent election. And actually, there are people on the other side of the aisle from the folks in this room who actually agree with that. And if you do make a relationship and you go together to the clerk, you might have actually better luck, particularly if you are in an all-blue county.
And it may take us a few years to get past 2020 in some people's minds because they have Trump derangement syndrome. So anything that you want to do related to Trump, they just have this weird instinct where they just can't think straight. But you keep working on it and you don't give up.
Right.
The fact of the matter is, what happened in DeKalb County to that Democrat woman who was running for county commissioner, the problem in her situation is that a person dropped off the ballot. And they did so in time, and supposedly there was a human error in removing that person from the ballot and being able to scan the final votes, and it's all blamed on human error. And human error happens. That process, that computer system process that does that, should also be transparent so that it isn't so confusing and complicated that when somebody drops off the ballot, which is going to happen everywhere in the country, it's going to happen in every county at some point, it doesn't create the issues that that lady experienced. But if you're a Republican or a Democrat, at some point, you're going to run into issues on this. It doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on. And when we talk about securing elections, I don't care which side wins when I'm talking about securing elections. You want to know who wins? Americans win when we have faith in the outcome of our elections again.
That's right.
And that is so important. Any other questions? If you don't have questions, we're going to close, and you get about 5 extra minutes before the next speaker. But if you do, we'll take them. Okay, it doesn't seem like you do. So if you go to our booth, if you signed up for the other box, we'll make sure that you have information on this box as well. But if you want to get this, you need to go over to our booth and sign up for it. And Lynn's organization can ship you a bunch of them if you need that. So we have a few here that you can take with you, and then if you want more, you can get them. And I want to just thank all of you for everything that you were doing for our country, for the work that you're doing. It's going to be a lot of hard work this year in 2024. But you're giving me faith that we can make a difference. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, guys. We're heading towards the end of our day here. So grateful for everybody. I know we're losing quite a few people here to, breaks and everything else. It's been a long day. They're wrapping up next door. But this is going to be the part of the day where we go through our Super Saturday construct. We're talking about the resources available to build a strong Super Saturday. Our team for the past probably 3 election cycles now has been out in the field working together with local county party chairs and activist organizations, teaching people how to do the basics on building a strong Super Saturday. And this has been one of the most important things, I think, from my perspective, on what's necessary for us to win actually come November. Because in the primary elections, in the general elections, there are so few people that know how to pull these things together. And we've kind of perfected the model a little bit. And we've been really lucky and really blessed because through Turning Point, we were able to attract some people to help build events to do this. But our field team at Turning Point Action is there in each of your key target states to help. And so without further ado, I want to introduce you to our national field director that manages all of our field program, Brett Galashevsky. Come on up, Brett.
So in your binders right now, there we go, now we're working. In your binders, you should have received a little handout on how to put on a Super Saturday the effective way. So I'm going to ask everyone to pull this out. It'd be fantastic for each and every one of you guys to follow along. I'm super thrilled to bring up with me here tonight someone who's a close friend of mine and coworker in Wisconsin who's really helped me perfect the Super Saturday model and perfect the landscape change in the grassroots that we've been able to accomplish over the last year or so. And that's our Wisconsin field representative and also the Dane County GOP chairman, the 23-year-old Dane County GOP chairman, Brandon Malley. Brandon? And what we'd like to do tonight is just kind of run through what the Super Saturday model from here on out should look like in each of your county GOP environments. What do we know right now about the Super Saturday model? I'll tell you guys a quick story about the very first time that I wanted to get involved. It was a Super Saturday. Think about it. 17-year-old kid. I want to knock doors. I'm being told that there's a door knocking event going on in my county party. I'm asked to come out to my dingy, dark GOP office on a Saturday morning. I'm a college student, or I'm a high school student. It's really hard to get me to wake up on a Saturday morning to do anything, let alone door knock. And I'm being asked to show up at my GOP office, meet up with people who are decades older than me, fumble around to try and use their paper walkbooks, and then go back out 10 minutes from where I started at my house in the morning. What was the use of that? We figured out very early on in our time at Turning Point Action and perfecting this model that we wanted to turn the Super Saturday door launch into an experience, a party with the opportunity to get involved. And we're going to really run into that in just a little bit here. So a little bit about me first. So as Tyler said, and Tyler was singing my praises, I really, really appreciate that. I started with Turning Point Action for the 2020 election cycle, which seems like a decade ago at this point. Everyone that's been involved for say 10, 15, 20 years, I think you guys understand me when I tell you it adds life to it. It adds decades. And I'm starting to lose my hair. I'm starting to get gray hair, and that's kind of the career field that we all chose. But I'm super excited because this is next generation stuff that we get to do at Turning Point Action and changing the landscape of Republican politics as we know it. So before that, I interned in the U.S. Senate in Wisconsin with my senator, Ron Johnson. You guys know who Ron Johnson is? I cannot imagine a U.S. Senate without Ron Johnson, somebody like him fighting for medical freedom, somebody like him fighting for border security, somebody like him fighting against the establishment as we know it. And before that, I graduated with a political science degree from Marquette University. So I'm a homegrown Wisconsinite. I'm Hilario De Leon's first vice chair, the Milwaukee County GOP chair. Where is he? Is Hilario in here? I took over as vice chair of the Milwaukee GOP about a year ago, and it's been crazy ever since. So that's my story. Brandon, how about you tell us about yourself?
All right. So I am a Wisconsin field representative for Turning Point, and I'm also the Dane County GOP chair. For those of you that don't know much about Dane County, Wisconsin, you're going to be hearing about it a lot in the next election, not just because the National Convention is coming to Wisconsin, but because the road to the White House runs through some of these non-traditional counties. You've been told that you have to win over like suburban Philadelphia, if you look at Pennsylvania, for example, or suburban Milwaukee is very important, of course, but a very, very blue area. Madison, Wisconsin is the biggest city in Dane County. It's the Berkeley of the Midwest. You would think there aren't a lot of Republican votes there. People are pretty demoralized. Actually, that's the key. People are pretty demoralized. That says everything you need to know about why I ran for chair. I don't want people to be demoralized anymore because Dane County alone can make up the margin that we're losing by in the state of Wisconsin. And in all of your states, I know you've got that one or two blue specks that pop up on the map and that ruin your election night, or maybe if we keep the margins low enough for the left, we have a good election night. That's the name of the game for us. I've been involved in politics for about 10 years. Got involved when I was 14 on political campaigns. I've been everything from volunteer coordinator, intern, and I've made it all the way up here to the RNCS.
I want to show you guys a couple of our Super Saturdays, some of our more successful events that we've put on, and we'll talk about kind of the, down the line successes that we enjoyed at the national level because of these events. This was an event that we put on in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, last year. For those that have been to the Midwest in late October, you know that it can be hit or miss when it comes to the weather. There are some days that are gorgeous, and there are some days that you wake up and it's 7 degrees outside, like this morning. I woke up, started my car, saw that it was 7 degrees, and I said, shoot, nobody is going to come to this. And on this day, we had about 100 people come out and knock doors in support of Ron Johnson, our U.S. Senate candidate. We created an environment that promoted turnout. What we figured out very early on is it's difficult to get a college student or really just any activist to wake up early on a Saturday morning to do anything, let alone door knock. So what did we do? We turned it into a rally, a party, and found out that people who showed up maybe not with the intention to door knock, after hearing somebody like Ron Johnson speak, somebody like Roger Stone speak, who we had at one of our Miami Super Saturday events once, somebody like Charlie Kirk speak, that we had speak at this event right up here that we had in Grand Rapids, Michigan back in 2020. They wanted to get involved. They were super, super fired up. In that moment, you are never going to be more fired up to get involved. My biggest gripe right now about Trump rallies are fantastic, super cool environments, but everyone gets super fired up and then they go home. That's it. Would you imagine how effective Trump rallies would be, or any huge conservative gathering, if every single person walked out with a stack of door hangers and a walk list and went and hit 20 doors on their way home? That was the environment that we were looking to create with our Super Saturday model. A few more. I just mentioned that we like to get Charlie out to as many Super Saturdays as we can. Think of somebody in your neck of the woods that can draw a crowd. Somebody who's super energetic and can get that person, even the most mundane activist in your network, to say, you know what? I have a role to play. If not me, then who? And if not now, then when? This was a really cool Super Saturday that we did. Here's the next one. This is Ron Johnson. We held this event in Menominee Falls. When we talk about low prop voters and going to those conservative voters that might not otherwise vote, Menominee Falls is the definition of that. There's a lot of Milwaukee spillover. We're getting a lot of Chicago spillover. We went into, for all intents and purposes, the belly of the beast when it comes to low prop conservative voters. And we had an event like this with Ron Johnson and activated 100 new door knockers onto the scene. It was a really cool environment, and we want you guys to replicate this in your counties back home. Here's another one that we did in Brookfield, Wisconsin. Here's some more, that middle picture right here, that Boots, who did the prayer earlier, he's right there in the middle. That was an event we did in Arizona. Off to the left-hand side, that was an event that we did in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And off in the upper right, that was an event we did in northern Wisconsin with Congressman Tom Tiffany in support of now Congressman Derek Van Orden. And again, some more here that we have here. Brandon.
So, the relationships that you build in February and March, they're going to determine your success in November. I'll say that again. The relationships that you build from now in February and March are going to determine your success in November. Let me go back a little bit in my personal background. So I've been through the spin cycle of campaigns, your standard 3 to 6 month. You've got your Senator Ron Johnson, or you've got your gubernatorial candidate Tim Michels, you've got your Tudor Dixon, you've got your Dr. Oz, you've got whoever it is. It's a 3 to 6 month stint, right? And then it seems like nothing is cumulative, everything falls off after that. The volunteers have nowhere to go. The volunteers aren't building up towards that in these months of the year before our elections. So I worked as a victory staffer, right? RNC comes in, they have this victory program, they staff up right before the election, and they say, okay, go find volunteers, beat up on them for 2 months before the election, you've got to hit the XYZ numbers, and that's all that matters. And it's never relationship-based. It's never them saying, you need to start a year early. You need to be going to your county party parades. You need to be going to their Lincoln Days. You need to immerse yourself in your county party, your district, your state, your local elections. That's one of the major flaws in the current Republican campaign apparatus, right? So we're talking about a complete paradigm shift here. This is a paradigm shift in how we campaign. So the relationships, right? I'm also a county chair. If you're a county chair, who are you going to be more likely to work with? Are you going to be more likely to work with that person that flew in from the RNC from another state to work an election in your county for 3 or 6 months and then says, hey, I need your volunteers. They're mine. Your county party members are mine. They're knocking doors for me in the areas I want, and this is my show. Or are you going to cooperate with those like our Turning Point Action field representatives that have built these relationships with you, that have helped with your Lincoln Days, that have helped with your social media, that have been there for the entire year before the election and showed their commitment and actually have the relationships with the volunteers? Think about it. We're here as a supplement, right? We're another organization to supplement the work that all of you are doing, and we're doing it differently than the way it's been done in the past.
What I want to make clear here is that door knocking is the definition of grassroots politics. It's federalism. It's how our founders intended government to be, close to the people. One of my favorite political quotes was from Tip O'Neill. He was the Speaker of the House in the 1980s under Ronald Reagan. He was a Democrat, but his famous quote was that all politics is local, right? All politics is local. I cannot think of a better phrase that sort of epitomizes the idea that every single thing that we can do in politics starts at the local level. The road to anything in politics begins at that local level. The road to ending the most radically liberal White House administration of our lifetimes starts at the local level, right? It's that trickle-up effect. If you expose people to conservative policies in their school boards and their city councils, and specifically at the door, that's going to have a carryover effect when they're voting in statewide and national races. I would argue to you guys that the most important position in politics is not in the White House. It's in your backyard. Battles for America are not won in Washington, D.C. Battles for America are won back home, in your precinct. Win your neighborhood, win your state. It's so important, and it's when we create that activism, it's that camaraderie, right? That community building that we want to be able to see and capitalize on as we continue to look at races down the line that we'd like to win.
So we want to push the movement to do better, right? We haven't done as well in elections for quite some cycles as we would like, right? That's why we're all here today. We haven't been given the manual for success. Some of us have only been county chair for 6 months or a year. Did the previous leadership come in and give you a manual for what to do? In some cases, they didn't work with you. In some cases, and the RNC should really be in here stepping up to help you do all of these things. But I hear a lot. I go all around Wisconsin. I hear from all different county chairs, district leaders. You know, we have these squabbles, and they say, well, Turning Point, are you working with Turning Point? Or are you working with your state party? Why does it have to be that kind of a question? The question shouldn't be about a zero-sum game. That's why the left wins, and that's why the right loses. It's a zero-sum game in the eyes of the establishment. It's us versus them. They don't think that there should be 501c4 organizations stepping up and picking up the pieces that the national political apparatus can't possibly pick up on. The Democrats have known this for a long time. And that's why they have, just in Wisconsin, for example, we had a Supreme Court race. We lost it by 11 points. We're a 50-50 state. We're a plus 20, minus 20,000 state. They came in with about 40 501c organizations on every single different type of messaging you can imagine. We need competition on our side. The apparatus can't do it alone. We encourage all of these organizations to be supplementing your county parties. A lot of you have interacted with Turning Point before this conference and are now going to interact with us much more. Would you like there to be another organization pushing the party to do better? So that's what we're here for. And then the paradigm shift that we talked about when it comes to these Super Saturday style events, I mentioned that I was a staffer with Victory, the national top-down RNC model for how you win or how you lose elections, as we've seen the last few cycles. And it doesn't work because they're not targeted. They come in, they tell the county parties what to do, and then they don't pick the right precincts. I can't tell you how many times I heard from the top down when I was a staffer under that model, go to XYZ area, you're going to win over the independents and just keep hammering them hard. And at the end of the day, I actually truly feel that we did not move the needle under that apparatus. And that's why I'm now a Turning Point employee, because we are moving the needle and we're approaching this differently. So you all had the data books on your counties on which wards we're going to be chasing. So this whole Super Saturday model is based off of that. This is the paradigm shift. The paradigm shift comes in the data and the relational organizing approach and making door knocking fun. Very important.
Before we get into the how to execute on these Super Saturdays, I do want to talk about the national impact that your Super Saturday that you put on back home could make. This is one of my favorite things I love to do in every presentation that I give. This is the congressional map of what Congress looked like right before COVID. This is what it looked like after COVID. This was, the 2020 election. This is now. I'll go back. What do you guys notice? Just spit it out. Look at Iowa. Look at Iowa. Yep. Look at Arizona. Look at Minnesota. Gerrymandering, a lot of redistricting, that kind of explains why some of those states, those districts look mangled. Take a look at Wisconsin. Look at that. This one in Minnesota, I want to point attention to you guys. That's Minnesota's 7th congressional district. That's kind of a weird statistical anomaly. So since 1991, that district was represented by a Democrat in the House. But with every passing election cycle for the president, the presidential candidate that was a Republican kept winning that district. Tell me how that makes sense. It wasn't until 2020 where a woman named Michelle Fischbach decided to run and won and knocked off a 30-year incumbent. We did a Super Saturday. We can clap for that, yeah. Our team at Turning Point Action went to Moorhead, Minnesota. Are there any Minnesota folks in here? Anyone from Minnesota? Any ties to Minnesota? North Dakota. Yes. Yes. I remember we flew into Fargo. We had our event in Moorhead, Minnesota. We couldn't believe the conversations we were having with people that were just chomping at the bit for Republican representation in that district. Before we get to Iowa, in Wisconsin, that congressional district, the 3rd congressional district, that whole part of western Wisconsin, that had been represented by a Democrat in the House since 1996. The year I was born, literally my entire life, we had never seen a Republican represent that side of the state. Beautiful area of the state. You drive around that state, that's Trump country. It's mind-boggling when you think that for that long, the Republican establishment that be let that slip through the cracks year in and year out. Turning Point Action endorsed that candidate, Derek Van Orden. We held 3 Super Saturdays for him in a 3-month span. And now we can say in Wisconsin that we have control of western Wisconsin. And now I want you guys to look at Iowa. Iowa. So you might be living right now in a really, really red district. And you can look at this map right now and say, hey, we're winning. We're fine. We got our foot on the gas. We're good. We have all the momentum rolling. And I'm here to tell you that's wrong. The best play in the Democratic playbook is them assuming we're going to sit on our thumbs, look at maps like this, and say we're good. And when you become complacent, you lose. I'll say it again. When you become complacent, you lose. We cannot let our foot off the gas. On the flip side, if you're living in a super blue area of the country or a super blue precinct, and you're saying to yourself, why should I do this? People like Brandon come to mind who live in the People's Republic of Dane County. Why would I do this? There's no conservatives around me. That makes no sense. And I'm here to tell you, I can relate it to my college experience. When I went to Marquette University, I sat in the back of all of my classes. I couldn't tell anyone that I was a conservative because I was afraid I'd be labeled the class Nazi, the class misogynist, the class homophobe, whatever the left calls us. But if I would have seen one other person in my classes that wasn't afraid to speak up and let their conservative voice be heard, I would have been 100 times more likely to get involved. And it can be the same thing in your liberal precinct. If you put together a coalition of maybe those 2 or 3 conservatives that you know, and you relationally organize them, and then you build it out from there, and let's just say that you get 6 people in your precinct to change their vote from Democrat to Republican, you can literally mean the difference in a win or a loss. And I say 6 for a very, very specific reason, and that's because very recently we had a congressional race decided by 6 votes in Iowa. Do you guys know about this? Marionette Miller Meeks. This is Iowa's 2nd congressional district. This is where the University of Iowa is. This is where Cedar Rapids is. This is where the Quad Cities is. The Republican candidate won by 6 votes. They tied this thing up in court. They recounted it 3 times. Pelosi was positive. No way. No way that she won by 6 votes. They got 6 votes every single time they recounted it. In this instance, literally every single door in every single nook and cranny of that district meant the difference in a win or a loss. If you think that those people who worked on that campaign or volunteered for that effort would have known ahead of time that that race was going to be decided by 6 votes, that they would have gone into it with a little bit different of a mindset? Of course they would. That's the mindset we need each and every one of you to have going into 2024. That's the mindset that's going to make sure that our kids and their kids and their kids never have to grow up in a socialist country. I am so proud to tell you that Turning Point Action held a Super Saturday event in Iowa's 2nd Congressional District back in October of 2020. Where's Teresa Bumgardner? Teresa, can you stand up for a second? I would love to tell this story. This is one of my favorite stories I love to tell. Teresa is the Johnson County GOP chair, which is where the University of Iowa is. This was a situation where, and you guys know this, a lot of times in politics, nothing comes easy to us, and a lot of things come at us last minute. You can plan, and you can plan, and you can plan, but you just cannot control certain things. And on the Thursday before we were set to have the Super Saturday, the venue we were supposed to have it at called us and said, you know what, on second thought, we don't want any conservatives to come. On the Thursday before, we're scrambling. We're like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? We give a call to the county chair, and Teresa, God bless you, Teresa goes, well, I have a farm. You guys are more than welcome to set up in my backyard if you'd like. On that day, we had 100 students from 4 different states show up to Teresa's backyard, hear from speakers, get fired up, and then go out and knock doors and help deliver a 6-vote win for Marionette Miller Meeks. How cool is that? Thank you, Teresa. Yes, yes. So let's talk about how you should do this. How do you want to execute on these? Start brainstorming. What do I need to do in my neck of the woods to make something like that happen, to make that impact back home?
So, your traditional model or idea of getting people to knock on doors is put out an email blast or have your campaign staffer put that out for you and basically say, okay, let's get 5-10 people together. We're going to knock on a swing area where there are a lot of independents. We'll have a couple of donuts, and then we'll have 3 people do all of the work for about 4 to 5 hours. This is a different model. This is a fun model. And for this fun model, you're going to need a completely different setup, because this isn't just going to knock on a few doors. This is an event. We want you to think about it as an event, a pep rally that leads to action. So you're going to need tables, you're going to need a microphone and a speaker, you're going to need some t-shirts. Make it fun. Make it local party oriented. Make it local issue oriented, candidate oriented. Buttons, signs, stickers, etc.
Something like that.
I mean, think about it. Are people more likely to show up for a couple of stale donuts and coffee, or are they more likely to show up if it's a party and you have a lot of young people and you have speakers and you have music? You get all riled up, and then you go and you knock, and you know that you're knocking in the most effective areas. Just think about the psychological impact quickly, right? I know that a lot of your volunteers, because I know this from personal experience, my volunteers don't like when they have bad data and then they go and they knock on supposedly independent doors and it's really angry Democrats 50% of the time. There's a demoralization factor to that as well. So with better data and targeted areas and explaining that to everyone, people are going to want to run through a wall to knock out these key precincts. When you get 20, 30, 40, 50 people together and you knock out an important precinct, you feel like you did move the needle. You feel like you did move the needle.
So let's talk about crowd building. How do we get people out to these things? You know what you need to do, and how do we get people out to them? I'm here to tell you guys right now, there are so many different resources out there, so many different groups that exist that are able to crowd build for you and take the recruiting responsibility essentially out of your hands. If anything, this conference, these last couple days, should have reiterated that to you, that we're all in different boats, but we're rowing to the same place. So find those auxiliary organizations in your neck of the woods, Republican women groups, Republican men's groups, conservative 2A groups, log cabin Republicans. The list goes on. Google them. They're out there. Social media is a huge resource for you in finding those groups. Non-affiliated GOP groups, think about it. Where are conservatives hanging out that might not necessarily be a traditional county GOP office or a county GOP event? Gun stores, hardware stores, rodeos, church. Start thinking those outside-the-box ideas, places where you can recruit a pool of people to come into.
No, and it's great that you mentioned the gun stores, because in Wisconsin, we have a situation where 40% of hunters are not showing, hunters and people with concealed carry permits, they're not showing up to vote, right? We have to get them registered, and we have to get the relationship built with them so that they have a reason to vote. But student groups are so important. And again, from this perspective, you know, Turning Point's bringing a lot of younger people and energy into the party, right? Into a lot of your counties, into a lot of your states. And then from a county party perspective, when I took over as chair, right, we have one of the biggest campuses in the country in Dane County, UW-Madison. We have 50,000 students. If it were its own city, it would be the 13th largest city in the state of Wisconsin. What kind of outreach do you think was done previously? None, to the point of, you know, we don't talk to you, or you know, you're not coming to any county functions, or here, we'll write you a check for $1,000. None? No. I went in and I asked the college Republicans, what do you need? Right? Not a situation where you come in October, right? You're 30, 40 years older than these students. You come in October, you want door knockers. I know how this goes. I was recruited when I was a college student, and I was happy to do it, but that's just me. I'm a bit of a nerd. So you come in and you don't have a relationship. How do you start something like that if you don't have a relationship? So I asked them, what do you need? College Republicans, Turning Points, what do you need? We don't have pizza for our meetings. We don't have stickers. What do you mean you don't have pizza and stickers? I mean, this was just mind-blowing. I couldn't believe it. And that's all it took to get the relationship started. I said, we are going to have your back. We're getting you pizza, stickers, flags, everything you need. We're going to get some donors to donate to your organization. You're going to have some fun events. We're going to work on speakers. We're going to work on flyers close to the election to just completely cover campus. And that's how it starts. You go in as a county party, what do you need? Pizza, stickers, flags, and that's it. Now these kids, I want to shout out the CRs from UW-Madison. They're fantastic. They're fantastic.
Yeah, they're a great group. They're a fantastic group. Yeah.
When they were talking earlier with Run Gen Z about the students that came over from different states and made calls in Iowa, the biggest contingent was from the most liberal place, UW-Madison. And that's partly because they're great students, but partly because we have such a good relationship with them. We gave them what they need to be successful as students, as conservative students on campus, and they come back and help us with social media. They come back and help us with phone calls. They come back and help us with all of these things a year before the presidential election. So you have to reach out to the student groups. Your Turning Point USA high school and college students are very important. They're going to be your biggest advocates. And then we have Network of Enlightened Women. We have YAL, YAF, Students for Life, Students for the Second Amendment, and we have campus ministry groups.
Turn these chapter leaders, these student activists, into your new best friends. I'll echo what Brandon said. It's a two-way street. If you show them that you're there for them, they're more likely to get involved with what you have going on if they feel part of it. If they feel that the juice is worth the squeeze for them to show up on a Saturday morning and knock doors for you. If you're going to take away anything else from what Brandon and I are telling you today, please have it be that. In order for the conservative movement to survive and advance, it needs young people to step up, not just join their local GOPs, but have a say in them and essentially help lead the future of it. This is the perfect opportunity to integrate those future leaders into your fold and help mold that next generation of conservative leadership. Let's talk about social media outreach. I think this is going to be the election cycle where we begin to pivot to the importance of social media more than ever before. There are Facebook groups out there right now that you may not even realize exist, that you can be part of, that allow you to be part of a whole new network of conservative free thinkers that you didn't know were out there. Type in on Facebook right now, literally, some of you guys have your phones out. Go on Facebook, type in Atlanta Conservatives, Wisconsin Freedom Fighters, Iowa for 2A. There are Facebook groups for everything. Get into these groups. Huge opportunity to then post in those groups and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, chairman of the so-and-so GOP, and we're having a door-knocking event on Saturday. It's a rally with so-and-so, so-and-so, and so-and-so guest speaking. We're providing breakfast, and we'd love to have you come out. Again, the outside-the-box ideas as a way to get through to these people. Telegram, who's on Telegram? Raise your hand. Who's on Signal? Who's on those? Yeah, there are groups like that too. Type in Wisconsin Conservatives. A lot of election integrity groups exist on Telegram. These are prime grounds for recruiting. Instagram, send waves of DMs to people. I love to do this. I love to go on pages like College Republicans, pages like Don Jr., pages like Charlie Kirk, and then go down the line and look for context clues. If they got a picture with a MAGA hat, you know that they're one of you. Send them a DM and personally invite them to the event. This is going to go so far with that demographic that has now taken over Instagram and is about to be the largest voting bloc, over the next couple of years in the conservative movement, Gen Z conservatives. We have to be reaching out to these folks. These are your soldiers. These are your first supporters out of the gate. These are the ones that are going to deliver the message. And then find those PC lists, those membership lists. Find those people on social media. And when appropriate, send them a friend request on Facebook. Interact with them on social media. Again, that idea that we are relationally organizing, you are more likely to get involved if you feel part of something. And I do want to talk about individual outreach because this goes against the status quo. This goes against the traditional norm of recruiting for events, for advertising for events. Put together an army and make call after call after call invites. Again, just like people feel more likely to get involved with something if they feel part of it, they're more likely to get involved with something if they feel that they've been personally invited to the event. I'm talking your precinct chair list, your membership list. Put together an army and make call after call after call to get these folks to come out. Hi, I'm so-and-so from the Waukesha County GOP. We're having an event this Saturday. I'd love for you to come. Can I send you more details? You guys, think about how effective that can be when maybe some of these conservative activists have never gotten a phone call like that before. Up until this point, what's the number one mode that conservatives are finding out about events? Email. What's the problem with email right now in the year 2024? Spam filters. Yes. You are more likely to get somebody to get involved if, one, it's coming from a personal cell phone, you. Two, you're able to build a relationship with them. And three, there's a personal touch to it. You've invited that person. They feel invested in this. They feel obligated to come. They feel like it's a welcoming experience for them to attend this, that they need to attend this, and that if they don't attend this, they're missing out on a prime opportunity to help a conservative candidate win.
So in-person outreach is really going to be your best friend. You're going to want to find events in the community, very local events, paneled events. You're going to want to find places where your state representatives are speaking and interacting with members of the community, your local law enforcement events. Just think from the mindset of where people that want to be involved in the community politically would be. It doesn't necessarily have to be a partisan thing either. You'll be able to weed out your conservatives versus your leftists. But if you can vet out your conservative events, do so. Put up flyers, right? Put up flyers. Go to gun ranges. Make friends with the owners of the gun ranges. Very important when it comes close to the election. Home improvement stores. Golf courses can be your friends. And then I'll say there's a bit of a correlation, right? You want to talk about kingpin activists and how to channel this energy. So I'm going to let you in on how I think about what's going on with the traditional Republican campaign apparatus versus more grassroots-minded organizations. Some of you are very numbers driven, and I like that. We've given you a lot of numbers with the precincts where you need to run up the numbers, where you have 750 outstanding potential conservative votes, right? So if you take a look, there's a correlation between the funding for national and state party apparatus and the amount of grassroots groundswell of support for the same, right? And as that goes down, grassroots activists are looking for an organization that'll listen to them, frankly. That's where we find a lot of our energy at Turning Point. We listen. And there are some people that will come through our network and want to run through a wall to be able to win the next election, right? They get that this is the election where we save or lose our country. They'll come through our network, and then we'll be able to work with you as county party leaders to plug them in, and then you, having been the only Republican leader that they have felt like has listened to them meaningfully in a long time, they'll be your number one advocate. They will go out there, they'll recruit 50 to 100 people to your event, and it'll be amazing. You get a few of these people, and your events will be completely transformed. I mean, I've experienced it at the Dane County Republican Party. We have a few people like that.
So I'm sure a lot of your county GOP websites have some kind of sign-up tracking system, right? If you want to attend an event, you sign up, whether it's Eventbrite, any sorts of integration system that exists on your website. Utilize that for your Super Saturday events. You've recruited, you've made a bunch of calls, you've built relationships with auxiliary organizations, you've made contact with the college Republicans, with the TPUSA clubs on campus. You've done everything that you can do to crowd build for this event. Now what? What's going to separate you from the rest of the pack? It's RSVP outreach. It's reaching out to those folks again, one final confirmation. Write this down. Give them a call. Say, hey, I'm so-and-so from the Waukesha County GOP. We saw that you signed up for our Super Saturday on Saturday for so-and-so. I just wanted to confirm with you that you still plan on attending and answer any questions that you might have from the event. Nothing weird, nothing intimidating. It doesn't seem like it's coming out of left field, giving this person a call again, but it's that added personal extra touch that you may need to get that person to fully commit to the event. Right? They may have signed up because it's like, well, yeah, I do have Saturday free. Maybe I'll come, maybe I won't, but I should sign up just in case. But that call could seal the deal. That call could be, that was really cool that volunteer gave me a call to make sure I was coming. And yeah, I did have a couple questions about the event. I'm really happy that I was given that clarity, and now I'm able to go on Saturday morning. Right, add that personal touch. This is my direct number. Feel free to give me a call if anything pops up between now and then. If you have any more questions, I'm here for you. Right, you're now that point of contact. You've relationally organized with that person. You've become the CEO now of that activist for the rest of their activism journey from here on out. Right, I know that's corny to think about, but this is the extra stuff that you're going to want to do in your county GOP that promotes that grassroots excitement that we're trying to find here in 2024. That edge, and then. Their job's not done as an activist. Their job's not just to show up, have some free pizza, and then go out and knock doors. It's their job to bring people with them, right? Ask them to bring 3 people with them. Ask them, hey, do you know anyone that you think would also be interested in going to this and helping out this candidate? It's an all hands on deck effort. If not you, then who? And if not now, then when? The more people, the bigger impact we can make on saving our country. If you get that one person on the phone and they bring 6 people with them, going back to our Iowa example, that one person could single-handedly change the future of the conservative movement. But with those 6 people, I'm going to bring it back home to Brandon. And the reason we're throwing this back up again is just because it is so important. You're going to be so thankful for the free time that you had in February and March and how you took advantage of that. Because right now, you're going to be wishing in October and November that we had this much free time again to be able to strategize and come up with a game plan for how we win. Brandon, bring us home.
So the mantra that you're going to walk out of here with is the relationships you build in February and March will determine November's success. That is going to be your mantra. You're going to look in the mirror 5 times every morning and repeat this. And after March, you're going to plug in April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and repeat the mantra. So, data, better data, targeted, precincts. You know exactly what you're going. You know exactly the low propensity Republicans you're after. Energy, excitement, youth, bringing in all of these organizations, listening to the grassroots, having fun. This is the nitty-gritty of winning elections. Fundamentally, the door knocking is the nitty-gritty, and this is the paradigm shift that we're presenting to all of you. This is the new model for the nitty-gritty of winning elections in this country.
We'll open it up to questions here. We do have a couple minutes still. We appreciate each and every one of you. The microphone is up in the front. If you do have any questions about Super Saturday recruitment, youth involvement, how to build that grassroots army, we both would love to shed light on anything that you may need. Otherwise, we appreciate each and every one of you for being here today. Thanks, guys. Awesome. A woman on a mission.
Hey, thank you for all the wonderful presentations. I know that we've, learned a lot over the last 2 days.
We're grateful you're here. Thank you.
One thing that I know has not been covered, and I think would be great to add to another presentation, is candidate recruitment. Because there are a lot of people that are interested in running, that want to run, but they run up against the people that tend to very often choose, particularly the down ballots, and they have this name, it's consultants. And very often the consultants, I won't say it's everyone, but it's a lot, have dollars as their main attribute for a candidate. In other words, if the candidate has money, they're more prone to endorse that or recommend the endorsement of that candidate. And what this process leaves out is all of us, the grassroots. So I bring it up because one of my friends and myself took it upon ourselves this year to develop a program using grassroots leaders in our community to interview in depth various candidates. I've interviewed twice each 20 candidates for assembly this year. What's interesting about it is that when we first started, everybody we talked to thought we were nuts and tried to just ignore us. They're not ignoring us anymore. And we're not asking to make the choices, but we want a seat at the table. And we think that the grassroots need to have a mechanism, a process for being a part of choosing or at least giving support to good candidates. So I think it's a subject, it'd be great if that could be explored and added into your basket of really great things, because these down ballot, these local, as you say, these local races are so important. They really impact us every day. And so it's really important that we get the best people that we can, and people with our values, and that are not beholden to one group or another. So if that could be added, great.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I will shout out Waukesha GOP Chairman Terry Dietrich, who gave a breakout session earlier today on winning at the local level. One point I'll quick make on that. When we talk about the consultant Republican class versus grassroots conservatives, the infrastructure in the Republican Party is there. We as grassroots conservatives just need to take it over. I'll say it again. The infrastructure in the Republican Party is there. We as grassroots conservatives just need to take it over. Yes, sir.
Thad Butterworth, 80 County Chair. And one of the things we have in Idaho that's very interesting is you see the map, we look very red, but we're not. We've got red state, blue management. And we know, because they've been public about it, there are a multitude of Democrats that will register as Republicans to mess with our primaries. And it's how we keep getting blue management. So you mentioned earlier with door knockers and data, and I'm wondering, have you been able to delve into the data that much that you can say this person really is not Republican, or do you have a scaling system for any of that? I'm just looking for how deep do you get in the data?
I can quick hit on this. So the traditional model, as we know it right now for data, coming from Data Trust, RNC Data Center, is in a state like Wisconsin, for instance, that does not register voters by party. It's really hard to be able to determine if this person is truly a Republican voter or not. In a lot of cases, especially with young people under the age of 30, if there's not a big enough sample size of voter history, they're automatically listed as a swing voter. So we want to be able to further narrow down and cast out a wider net, one, but then further narrow down, is this person truly a conservative based on things like occupational data, consumer data. You just gave the number one reason why each and every one of you should explore the app that we've been talking about all week, and the opportunities that app presents in being able to further narrow down where our conservative voters are, especially in those low prop areas. So I hope that answers your question. And obviously, we'd love to keep the conversation going in your county GOP about bringing a better data system to your neck of the woods.
Well, actually, I'll add, when you're talking about the elected official aspect to what you had said, Turning Point has the most transparent scorecard in the conservative movement. So when you're talking about people that are already elected, and they're giving you that blue management that you're talking about, when it comes to your federal races, your two senators, you have Crapo and Risch, right?
Yeah.
Crapo and Risch, and then you've got a bunch of you've got a couple of Republican congressmen. You can take a look at tpaction.com/scorecard and see how they're actually voting on the different bills and hold them accountable based on those metrics, right? In Wisconsin, I use this all across the state. I use it against the Democrats, but we have a senator, Tammy Baldwin, right? I even go overseas and I tell people I'm from Wisconsin. And if they know anything about American politics, they look at me and they say, don't you have the two most diametrically opposed senators in the United States? You've got Ron Johnson, you've got radical leftist Tammy Baldwin. So I go around Wisconsin, I talk about our scorecard. Tammy Baldwin has a lower score than Nancy Pelosi does, and it blows people's minds. You go to our scorecard, you let people know how your elected officials on both sides of the aisle are handling the legislation before them, and then you go around, and that's a good talking point for you. And you question, why didn't they vote for this bill, or why did they vote for that bill? I hope that answers your question a little bit.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Linda Buckeye. I'm from Clark County here. As I have... Thank you, my friends. What I have also noticed is that this group supports Christianity, but we're also missing another group. It's called the Jewish faith. We can't turn them off. Now, Dita Titus and Stephen Hershford would not vote for Hamas or against Hamas. In other words, they supported them by not voting. Anyhow, we need to also reach out to them and not turn them off, and that's my point.
I couldn't agree more. Actually, I'm Jewish. My family, my family are, the reason I'm involved in politics is because my family are Jewish refugees from the former Soviet Union. So I don't want... I'm disturbed by the rise in anti-Semitism, and I'm disturbed by the rise in this leftist ideology, which then progresses into communism. Absolutely, we need to be inclusive as a movement. We don't need to, we have Judeo-Christian values. We need to bring as many people into the tent as possible. And actually, I get the broader question. I get the broader question about Jewish people right now and things after October 7th. the one thing that I'll say that applies to everyone, right? Two things I'll say. One, this is a battle for Western civilization. You see the left talk about Republicans are a threat to democracy. The left is a threat to Western civilization. That's one. The second thing is, after the last few months with the war in the Middle East, I'm not saying that there's going to be a groundswell of Jewish and moderate voters that are going to flip magically to Donald Trump or the Republican Party. But what I am going to say is that there's a fracture in the left. There's a fracture in the left because they've, for years, put together this coalition of groups that really hate each other. And that really comes to mind with Queers for Palestine. Queers for Palestine. I mean, you go to another country and you say Queers for Palestine, queers would be thrown off a roof in the Middle East. I mean, it's terrible. It's terrible. So the thing that grassroots conservatives have to focus on is just fracture their coalition. Just fracture their coalition. Keep pointing out how many different groups on the left actually don't get along. And then you'll see some of these people either stay home or vote third party.
We'll take the two more questions then up front. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you mentioned using the Turning Point scorecard and then using the information there to hold the elected officials accountable. My concern is that elected officials, we may work our tails off to get them elected initially. They depend upon us for organization, for fundraising. Once they get into office, they leave that trough. They go feed at the trough of the lobbyists and the special interests, and they laugh at us when we try to take them out in a primary because they've got the money and they don't need us. And we need to reverse that.
Well, so I'll tell you, so there's two parts to being a conservative activist. One, there's getting that person in office, knocking doors till your knuckles bleed, doing the grassroots work to get that person in. And then two, arguably the most important part of being a conservative activist is then holding that elected official accountable. So if you haven't already, check out our TP Action Scorecard. While organizations, other conservative groups in the C4 space will give somebody an A+ rating, but then won't tell you, what that's based off of, our TP Action Scorecard goes into depth. It tells you the bills that we're scoring on. You're actually penalized for missing votes. And it really is a true resource. It's the one-stop shop for holding elected officials accountable. So I highly encourage you to check that out. And please remember that holding elected officials accountable is truly the most important part of being that conservative activist. Yes, ma'am. This will be our final question then.
Hi, I'm Louisa, Southern California Precinct Committee person, and I really appreciate your scorecard. However, we don't have currently a mechanism for people who are newly running for office. And that's one of the problems that we're finding, especially in Southern California where I'm at. We have people running for office that are what I would call baby Democrat or baby Republicans, brand new Republicans. Some just 4 months, a Republican, some people less than a year a Republican. And while conversion is what we want, they don't have a record for us to point back to. And sometimes we really have to go deep to try and figure out, are they really aligned with our principles? So I would love to see, again, a scorecard for those particular candidates where, again, sometimes you have to go a little deeper because right now, for instance, where I'm at, we have a really Marxist person representing me as my local congressman, and we have someone running against him who calls himself a Republican. He's not even a year, but he's pro-universal health care, he's pro-guaranteed income, and several other things down the line. So we have to be able to, again, really vet these candidates. Another person commented on that, down the line, but it's something that's real we're dealing with, and any help that you all can bring to the table would be appreciated. Thank you.
Okay. So your question was related more to how could we get a scorecard to apply to people that are running for office for the first time, that there's nothing to hold them accountable on.
No, nothing to actually vet them on. So you have a scorecard for, again, for people who have a score to rate, but for those who don't, again, it takes digging a little bit deeper, and help would be appreciated because, again, we have people who are just saying, oh, wonderful, you're running, thank God we need you. But no, really, they're, again, oftentimes a Democrat with an R on their, on their sweatshirt that's not legitimate.
Well, you're from Southern California, so I think we have a little camaraderie because I live in a very communist area too. So I know that you're innovative, and I know that you show a lot of perseverance down there, and that's why I have this idea for you. Take the tools we already have for you in terms of keeping these elected officials accountable. Go onto our website, tpaaction.com/scorecard. Make a printout. Make a printout of the bills in the current session for the 118th Congress. Let's say that person that you're trying to vet is running for Congress or is running for the U.S. Senate. Take it, print it out. Don't put on there, get rid of the column where it says how Turning Point would advise someone to vote, yes or no. Give it to them blank. Turn it around on them. Have them fill it out almost as a questionnaire so you can vet them. And then line it up against how we would rate that score, and then you'll have a little bit of an idea if this person's on the right track or not.
I'm so sorry. We are short on time, and we do need to move into our strategy session.
I just had another answer to that question. I just had another answer for that. This is where your county bylaws can come into play.
Yes, ma'am.
Because if you have a clause in your bylaws that in order to be a candidate, you had to have been a registered Republican for 6 months, a year, 2 years, this is a place you county chairs can add to your bylaws, and that helps fix that.
Thank you. I hope we were able to get the wheels turning in everyone's head on envisioning what success looks like this year in our Super Saturday model. We're here. We're a resource for you. In your binders, you should be able to find where your Turning Point Action rep is, the one who's closest to you. We want to be able to help. We want to be able to step in and show you the new way to win and how we save our country. So thank you guys so much.